request all of you to please settle down. On behalf of bharatshakti.in, I welcome each and every one of you to this afternoon's event. Before I say a few words, I would request the founder and editor-in-chief of bharatshakti.in, Nitin Gokhale, to kindly escort Are we okay? Can I continue? To kindly escort our dignitaries on stage for the inaugural session, Shri Baba Kalyani, Chairman and Managing Director, Bharat Forge, Major General Yuav Arivan, President and CEO, Rafael Advanced Defence Systems Limited, Lieutenant General V.G. Khandare, former military advisor, NSCS. I request Nitin Gokhale to please escort our dignitaries on stage. Can I have a round of applause, please? You've all come after lunch. Clapping will give you energy, I promise. It is Bharat Shakti's pride and privilege to be host organization and self-reliance in defense production. We are proud to say the ranks of our followers have been steadily swelling through the years. The first edition of our Defense Attachés Conclave was organized in August 2016. Since then, we have staged this event annually. Every year, we have been delighted to have an overwhelming response from the foreign defense attachés. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for being here today. In its 6th edition, our endeavor is to provide all stakeholders in the defense ecosystem a platform for interactive dialogues on boosting defense cooperation through collaboration. We will take you through 3 technical sessions in addition to the inaugural session. The detailed agenda will be on your screen. In addition to the technical sessions, we will have one-on-one interactions between Nitin Gokhale and the Chief of Defence Staff, Chief of Army Staff and the Chief of Air Staff. We are very happy that this year too, like last year, we are all gathered here to share not just our views and our knowledge, but also our time with each other, in spite of the pandemic that is yet to fully subside. We are observing protocols. We have tailored keeping that in mind. We have tailored the event keeping that in mind. All of you would have received pocket sanitizers, courtesy DRDO. I would like to thank our partners, Solar Group, General Atomics, GSR Dynamics, Airbus, Lockheed Martin, Zen Technologies, Modern Asset, Bharat Forge, IDBI, Shiva Texan, Goa Shipyard Limited, Boeing, Naval Group, Larsen & Toubro. Without you, this event would not have been possible. We also have information kiosks put up by our partners. Please do visit them during the kiosk breaks, pick up the brochures and stay in touch with them. Let us begin the proceedings, ladies and gentlemen. I invite Nitin Gokhale, founder and editor-in-chief of bharatshakti.in, to deliver the welcome address.
Thank you, Nilanjana. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Baba Kalyani, Major General Arivan, Lieutenant General V.G. Khandare, who just demitted office as the military advisor to the NSCS just last week. All the serving military officers, veterans, seniors, all those joining virtually. I'm told we have a YouTube live video cast that we are doing, and I'm expecting almost 3,000 people to join and watch this event online. All those joining virtually, of course, and above all the defense advisors and defense attachés of friendly foreign countries who make up for our co-participants for the last 5 editions, and this is the 6th edition, as we mentioned. In fact, without all of you, and all of you actively participating, we wouldn't have this kind of gathering. The large number of people who have gathered here wouldn't be possible without all of you, our friends from different countries here. Welcome to all of you. We started deliberately in the afternoon because the weather has turned in Delhi, as all of you have noticed, and with a lot of hope that we do not have any more wave of coronavirus coming our way. We thought we'll begin in the afternoon and end with drinks and dinner in the evening when the weather is congenial. It's very pleasant in Delhi these days, the best time to be in Delhi, I think. So therefore, very warm welcome on my personal behalf as well as my team, which has worked very hard to put this together. I'm just the public face here, but all the hard work that has been done is done by the team of bharatshakti.in and StratNewsGlobal, which is our other platform, where some of our colleagues from there are going to be moderators of this session. Now, as you are aware, this is our 6th annual conclave. And as Nilanjana mentioned in her welcome or the opening remarks, we began very small in 2016. Small and in fact tentatively, hoping to become a platform to bring together different stakeholders in the Indian defense sector. The idea was born out of a conversation, and I must repeat this, I have said this earlier, I must repeat this, that it was born out of a conversation with a defense attaché of a friendly country to India, where he said that we have an association of defense attachés in Delhi, and we need to get them together to make them understand, give them information about the Indian defense sector, the opening up of the defense sector, all that. And it began very tentatively in August 2016 in the Manekshaw Center. But at this moment, I may not be exaggerating if I state that we have managed to survive and progress over these 5 years. This event, thanks to all of you, has gained traction and is now on the calendar of all the participants and stakeholders in the Indian defense sector, which is a very heartening thing for all of us and all the defense professionals in this hall. Looking back, all of us have managed to establish a template for cooperation through collaboration. Representatives of different nations have made it into a multinational event, as we can see here. In the backdrop of the rapidly changing geopolitical situation and the churn that we are witnessing across the globe because of recent events, we thought of broadening the scope of the annual gathering from this year and rename the Defence Attachés Conclave to India Defence Conclave to discuss and deliberate larger issues of defense cooperation, collaboration, manufacturing, production, and sharing of technology across the board. I am happy to inform that Defense Minister of Maldives, Ms. Maria Didi, and Defense Secretary of Sri Lanka, General Kamal Gunaratne, have agreed to our request to speak on defense cooperation in the region. Unfortunately, because of COVID restrictions as well as their own preoccupation on pre-scheduled conferences and events, they are not able to join us in the physical form here in Delhi, but they have sent us recorded messages which will be played as we go along. Similarly, India's Defense Secretary, Dr. Ajay Kumar, who had committed to be here, has had to answer the call of a parliamentary committee of the Ministry of Defense, which is holding its annual meeting in Bangalore. So he's going to join us online, provided, of course, there's no technical glitch, but I'm sure my team has taken care of all the technical aspects of that. That apart, we are lucky to have a lineup of stellar speakers and specialists sharing their thoughts on the theme of the conclave and beyond. As you can see in the program which is there with you, we have different subjects. We are going to have interaction with chiefs of the armed forces. Unfortunately, again, the Chief of Naval Staff has not been able to join us, unlike last year, because he is presiding over the annual Naval Commanders Conference in Delhi, which is going on at the moment as we speak and will continue till Friday. We will also have the opportunity to hear Mr. Baba Kalyani, a doyen of industrialists here, and professionals from all the companies that Nilanjana named who are our partners for a long time. We are grateful to them, all our partners, for supporting us through these 5 or 6 years in putting this together as far as the program is concerned. While the Indian military and the Ministry of Defense has embarked on a campaign to make India self-reliant in defense, I must emphasize here that India is not closed to collaboration with global OEMs or even Indian OEMs. Inducting state-of-the-art technology in the Indian Armed Forces, from wherever it is sourced, I think is the top priority of the Government of India and the Ministry of Defence as well as the Armed Forces. So, India, I believe, is the land of opportunities in defence in this coming decade. And I think it's for all of us to take advantage of that both ways. While Indian technology, Indian companies which are present here in large numbers, they can offer a lot of solutions which are high quality, low cost. India can also benefit from OEMs, foreign OEMs which have very high technology and also have the opportunity to make in India. I think this is where this conclave hopes to contribute in its own small way to the growth story we are most certainly going to witness in the very near future. Let me once again welcome all of you. Hope you will have several takeaways at the end of the day. However, do forgive us for any shortcomings that may occur through the day in the arrangements that we have tried to make as comfortable as possible. Best of the planning, as you know, can go awry. And who better to know that than the military leadership here and the military representatives who stay here. Best of the plans can go haywire. Who would have thought, for instance, that one of our main speakers and partners, Dr. Vivek Lal of General Atomics, would have had to cancel his plans at the last moment because the United Airlines flight that he was taking from San Francisco took off, traveled for 4 hours, and then turned back because there was a medical emergency on board. So he's finally reaching only at 1:10 a.m. tomorrow morning. One wouldn't have thought about that. So, that's what best laid plans always go haywire. Or that I would pull a hamstring early this morning while exercising and I'm limping as we speak, as I stand here. But this is life. What is life without some chaos? I think through the chaos, there'll be some order, some takeaways, some sharing of thoughts, some deliberations, and some, of course, exchange of notes between all of us gathered here. I welcome all of you again. Please enjoy the day. Please be free. If you want to ask questions, please feel free to write on the paper that will be given to you. And we'll try and get answers from the experts and specialists, those who are here. And of course, do stay on till the evening, have drinks, have dinner with us, and let's all enjoy this day in Delhi. And of course, those who are watching virtually. Thank you very much once again for being here and welcome again. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nitin. Moving on with the inaugural session, it is my honor to introduce to all of you Shri Baba Saheb Kalyani, the Chairman and Managing Director of Bharat Forge Limited, flagship company of the Kalyani Group, a leading engineering conglomerate headquartered in Pune, Maharashtra. Kalyani Group companies have joint ventures with several global MNCs. Bharat Forge Limited is today widely acknowledged as the #1 forgings company in the world, with the largest repository of metallurgical knowledge in the region and capability to supply sophisticated high-tech components to almost every leading OEM across automotive, oil and gas, railways, marine, mining and aerospace sectors. Shri Kalyani, I request you to please deliver the industry address.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Sri Nitin Gokhale, General Khandare, former military advisor, NSCS, my good friend and partner, General Yarovan, President and CEO of Rafael Advanced Systems Limited, all the distinguished members from the services, Army, Navy and Air Force, our distinguished industry colleagues from different industries who are partnering this event. A very warm good afternoon to all of you. I should first take this opportunity to compliment Nitin and his entire team at Bharat Shakti for organizing this annual platform. I have seen it grow, as he described, from 2015-16. The India Defence Conclave that has now become a must-to-go event in our calendars. Nitin, I also compliment you and your team at Strategic News International for stellar work in coverage and reporting of right information and news from sensitive areas. The theme for today's conclave is Defense Cooperation through Collaboration. Our Defense Secretary, Dr. Ajay Kumar, is not here, but I'm sure he'll agree with me when I say that there could have been a better moment and a conducive time for investors considering investments in India. Despite the headwinds caused by the pandemic, India is still recognized as one of the fastest growing economies in the world. Despite having a large population and heavy caseloads of COVID-19, India took the challenge head on and collectively breaking all silos, the government, the armed forces, the industry, and the society at large. Everyone came together in the hour of crisis and served their best. Furthermore, the government backed India's domestic vaccine producers and put their might behind them in scaling up the production. As a result, we have today clocked 1 billion vaccinations and are witnessing a significantly lower number of new cases every day. In the words of our Honorable Prime Minister, India scripts history. We are witnessing the triumph of science, enterprise, and the collective spirit of 130 billion Indians. If we can do it in healthcare, we can do it in defense. There is nothing that we cannot achieve. One important lesson the COVID crisis, the ensuing aggressive rollout of India's vaccination has taught us. Nothing can beat being self-reliant or having indigenous production capabilities and owning the intellectual property will place our country ahead of others. It's true in healthcare and it very much holds true in defense. At the peak of the first wave of the pandemic, the Honorable Prime Minister gave the nation a new resolve to convert the crisis into an opportunity and realize or create an Atmanirbhar Bharat, a self-reliant India. The defense and aerospace industry is at the heart of this mission, as it is of paramount importance for a country like India with 1.4 billion people to strengthen its armed forces, its military might, but with Indian products made by a vibrant and modern domestic defense industry. Self-reliance or Atmanirbhar basically means that the critical knowledge, know-how, the know-why should be gathered in India. Sophisticated weapon systems should be made indigenously. Intellectual property for critical capabilities should be within India. Repository of highly skilled resources and workforce should be developed in India. While we embark on this journey towards strengthening India's defense sector, we also need support and collaborations from our friends from the United States, from Israel, from France, from Russia, and many other military major powers. Cooperation through collaboration is the way forward. The logical next question is, what are the avenues for this collaboration? Areas where India has technology deficiency. The objective here is to collaborate and address the gaps, create joint ventures or join hands with Indian companies to manufacture products in India for the Indian armed forces and also for exports. Invest in creating local capabilities and resources. help India accelerate its need to fill these gaps and attain self-reliance. Some examples, a few, there are many others. For example, aero engines. The big topic in discussion today, semiconductors and fabs. High-end sophisticated equipment for air defense systems such as seekers and many, many other high-tech products. Areas where India has technology sufficiency. Partner with Indian companies, cooperate and collaborate with them in leveraging India's inherent strengths to manufacture or develop world-class products at a competitive price point and export from India to friendly third countries, which is allowed by our MOD. You will all agree that India offers tremendous competitive advantage for products for which capability exists locally. I will give some examples: artillery guns, specialty vehicles, small arms, ammunition, areas where many Indian companies have invested and created capability apart from the ordnance factories, which are now become separate companies. Dr. Ajay Kumar, unfortunately not here with us today, the Secretary of Defense, who has been the architect of some of the most pertinent key reforms that have been promulgated in the last 3-4 years of the above objectives. I'd like to cite an example of one such major clause in the recently promulgated Defense Acquisition Policy, the DAP 2020, which is Buy Global, Manufacture in India, that encourages many foreign industry partners to set up wholly owned subsidiaries and manufacture the hardware here in India with increased local content. Similarly, the draft Defense Production and Export Policy, which is currently in its final stages, is putting a mechanism to encourage and incentivize defense exports from India. Furthermore, I would like to impress upon this audience today that such forward-looking policy actions, coupled with the heightened focus on creating a modern, best-in-class industrial infrastructure, roads, expressway, shipping ports, airports, industrial corridors, that was just announced by the Honorable Prime Minister a few days ago, with an extremely large investment of almost 100 lakh crores, has resulted in getting India to be recognized as the second most attractive manufacturing destination in the world today. I just read a report this morning where China, which was the manufacturing workshop of the world, is now beginning to face two big problems. One, the cost of labor has dramatically shot up in the COVID period. And the worst, the cost of energy is now almost 3x of what it was earlier. And these were the two advantages that China had in the manufacturing sector to compete against countries like India. And this is our moment. India offers an unbeatable competitive advantage in terms of highly skilled resources, talent, cost competitiveness, and speed. Just to give you an example, we in our company are now working with a major company in the United States to develop subsystems for the US Army's future artillery products. As we move forward, I would like to take this opportunity to urge this gathering and all the stakeholders of the Indian defense sector present here, in the true spirit of the Honorable Prime Minister's Atmanirbhar Bharat mission. Let us together take a pledge to do our best in developing critical capabilities and technologies here in India, indigenously. Building a self-reliant India and Atmanirbhar Bharat is a journey, and we Indians are fully committed to this mission. I take this opportunity to invite you all to join us and make this a collective endeavor. Thank you and Jai Hind.
Thank you very much, Sri Kalyani. As Nitin mentioned in his welcome address, General Kamal Gunaratne, retired, the Defence Secretary of Sri Lanka, was gracious enough to send us his thoughts and his message through a video recorded message. I request Aditya to please play that.
Defence Secretary of Republic of India, Dr. Ajay Kumar, founder of Bharat Shakti in Mr. Nitin Gokhale, officials of the Ministry of Defence of Republic of India, foreign defence attaches of friendly foreign countries posted in India, members of think tanks, defence analysts, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. At the outset, let me extend my heartfelt gratitude to the founder of Bharat Shakti in Mr. Nitin Gokhale for granting me with this opportunity to deliver a special address at the inaugural session of the India Defence Conclave 2021. I wholeheartedly consider this as a pride and a privilege to address such a distinguished gathering which forms an audience with a multitude of local and foreign officials. As we all are aware, Bharat Shakti in, the digital platform focused on defence and security aspects in the Indo-Pacific region, undertakes a commendable task towards India's quest for foster collaboration and cooperation in the region and provides a stable platform for the governments and other entities of the region to cooperate through discussions and debates to establish sound assessments on defence and security in the Indo-Pacific region. Most importantly, I must declare that I am extremely pleased that the theme selected for this conclave, Defence Cooperation through Collaboration, is a timely, pertinent theme capable of augmenting the significance and emphasis of the closely linked nations in the Indian Ocean region. Coming together with enhanced collaboration to face the unconventional challenges and threats of the 21st century towards ensuring the security and stability of the region. At this backdrop, it is very much pertinent to mention that the large and diverse Indian Ocean region, through which 2/3 of global oil trade and 1/3 of global cargo trade pass, faces multiple trans-border security challenges in the form of non-traditional threats. This includes piracy, armed robberies at sea, terrorism, trafficking in narcotics, arms and people, illegal fishing, and the dangers posed by natural and man-made disasters and climate change. Therefore, all neighboring countries should strive to enhance collaboration on maritime safety and security in order to ensure peace, stability, and sustainable economic growth and development in the Indian Ocean region. This includes building and establishing common grounds towards overcoming security challenges on maritime threats, seeking a complementary approach towards maritime domain awareness. Further, on a more time-pertinent note, the global pandemic of COVID-19 in the perspective of health security has unleashed its rage in a global magnitude, threatening the stability of the strongest nations worldwide. COVID-19, in fact, harshly reminded us how bitter would be the repercussions of negligence in health security. However, the extreme end of the pandemic will not merely affect the lives of the citizens of each country, but also affect the health security of the region multidimensionally, urging for a strong collaboration among all countries in the region. Further, at the contemporary situation, The environmental dimensions of regional security were initially considered within the frameworks of vast phenomena such as global warming and possible nuclear fallout and their consequences. The environmental security has been neglected over the economical desires for centuries, and the bitterness of repercussions will be upon our future generations. Therefore, it is my earnest belief that the friendly countries in the IOR must enhance their collaboration to discover different avenues in redefining the aspects of environmental security as well. In the context of enhancing collaboration in the region, India, Sri Lanka and the Maldives participated in the 4th National Security Advisors, that is NSA level trilateral meeting in Colombo, November last year, where intense deliberations were carried out on ways of enhancing maritime security cooperation in the Indian Ocean region. The meeting was attended by India's National Security Advisor Sri Ajit Doval, Maldives Defence Minister Her Excellency Maria Didi and myself. Senior officials from Seychelles and Mauritius also participated virtually. During the course of the meeting, various issues of mutual concern were discussed, including ways of enhancing maritime security cooperation in the Indian Ocean. Apart from taking stock of the current maritime security environment in the region, the three countries also discussed mutual cooperation in areas such as humanitarian assistance in the Indian Ocean region, disaster relief, joint naval exercises, capacity building, marine pollution, protection of underwater heritage, and most importantly, intelligence sharing, among many other aspects. Following up on that, the Deputy NSA level meeting was held most recently, which identified 4 pillars of cooperation in marine safety and security, terrorism and radicalization, trafficking and organized crime, and cyber security, urging effective and enhanced collaboration in each area, including joint exercises and training. These initiatives, grounded in military and security collaboration, assume significance in the region in the wake of the current geostrategic dynamic that India shares with Sri Lanka and the Maldives. In a broader sense and at a strategic perspective, it is my strong belief that events of such nature would immensely provide favorable outcomes towards the defense cooperation and collaboration among neighboring countries in the region. With that being said, I am obliged to state to this august gathering that organizing an event of this magnitude requires an immense effort by all the stakeholders, and I am well certain that the outcomes of this event would provide many avenues to redefine the defense partnerships between countries of the region into a broader and collaborative platform with domestic and global expertise. Therefore, I would like to extend my heart gratefulness to the founder of Bharat Shakti in Mr. Nitin Gokhale for being at the helm of organizing the intellectual gathering in an impressive manner. Finally, I would like to extend my heartiest well wishes for the participants of the India Defence Conclave 2021, where they will be imparted with thought-provoking and brainstorming sessions by the hierarchical members of the Indian defence apparatus and best resource personnel in their respective spheres. I hope all participants will be adequately benefited from these expert sessions, sharing experiences and exchanging knowledge and insights. And I wholeheartedly wish all of you the success in all your future endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was the Defence Secretary of Sri Lanka. It is now my honor to introduce to all of you Major General Yoav R. Even, retired, President and CEO of Rafael Advanced Defense Systems Limited, a leader R&D and production of defense systems in Israel and around the globe. General Arivan joined Rafael in December 2015, following his retirement from the Israel Defense Force after 31 years of service. His last position was head of the IDF's Operations Directorate, a position which he held since 2012. General Arivan, I request you to please deliver the special address.
Good afternoon, Mr. Gokhale. Thank you for the opportunity. General Kandahar, my dear friend, Mr. Kalyani, distinguished guest. And maybe before I start reading from the paper, I would like to tell you that I'm quite excited to be here. It's been almost 2 years since my last visit in India. And yesterday when I landed, it was like coming back home. Because we have more than just relationship between us as a company and you. It's like strategic partnership, goes back for more than 25 years. And again, thank you very much for the opportunity. And it is my distinguished privilege to stand before you today representing Rafael Advanced Systems from Israel. Rafael has been working in India for over 2 decades. Throughout the time, we have successfully delivered a variety of advanced systems and solutions in several different spare and services. We are proud to see some of these systems still in active, operational use even 20 years later. This serves a clear example of not only our history in India and alongside our Indian counterparts, it will also conveys the deep and firm committed to maintain this long-standing association and partnership. In India, Rafael was a pioneer in establishing a 49% FDI JVs. The first one was with Mr. Kalyani, and we are very proud about this JV. We have transferred production capabilities and know-how to our partners and create an ecosystem of more than 100 local manufacturers, most of them MSMEs, and we have subcontracted over $500 million outsourced from our Indian partners. Rafael has opened manufacturing plants in India in recent years, and we continue to expand our operations here. These moves constitute Rafael's strategic approach to investment in India and supporting the local manufacturing, expecting this investment to pay dividends in the near future. We have no doubt that India's defense industry will grow, serving the increasing local needs for modernization and upgradation. After the successful implementation of domestic contacts, we are confident that more global contacts can be generated to the Indian defense industry, leveraging its advantages. The same approach worked well looking at the growth trends of the Israeli defense industry. We at Rafael are already looking together with our partners behind Make in India with our eyes towards export from India. We look forward to what lays ahead, to continued growth and continued partnership with the Government of India, the Ministry of Defense, the various services, and of course, our local partners. Thank you all for your time and it has been a pleasure taking part in yet another event marketing the GET potential here in India. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, General Arivan. And now we have a special address, which was again a recorded address by the Honorable Defense Minister of the Republic of Maldives, Ms. Maria Ahmad Didi. Could we have that, please?
Chief of Defence Staff of the Indian Armed Forces, General Bipin Rawat, Defence Secretary of India, His Excellency Dr. Ajay Kumar, Defence Secretary of Sri Lanka, General Retired Kamal Gunaratne, distinguished speakers, Excellencies, delegates from India and the world over. Assalamu alaikum, Namaste, Ayubovan. It is an absolute pleasure and honor to address the 6th annual India Defence Conclave organized by Bharat Shakti India and the Ministry of Defence of the Republic of India. I believe the conclave is testament to India's unmistakable leadership in fostering collaboration and cooperation in the Indian Ocean region under her robust security and growth for all in the region Sagar policy. The initiative also signifies India's keen interest towards building a free, open and rules-based Indo-Pacific as part of the Quad grouping of the world's major democracies and its own accord. There's no doubt that India, given its size, geography, wealth and vitality, is central to creating an atmosphere of confidence and goodwill in the Indian Ocean region and beyond. The Indian Ocean region is in no way ordinary. The great ocean that our 3 billion people call home boasts 40% of the world's oceanic trade, half of its container shipping, and 2/3 of its maritime oil trade. The strategic significance of its critical straits from Malacca in the east to Hormuz in the west attracts the attention of the world's nations anxious to ensure their access to waterways and their continued freedom of navigation. It is more vital than ever to regularly convene conclaves such as this so that together we can effectively resolve our common security challenges and concerns. At the heart of our debates should be the security and prosperity of our peoples. We cannot overstate just how important maritime security is to the Maldives. The ocean has been our lifeblood since as far back as our history reaches, with 99.7% of our territory comprised of water. In fact, the Indian Ocean is to us what the Ganges has been to the Indian subcontinent for millennia. Even today, ensuring the regular and safe flow of commerce, cargo, and maritime travel in accordance with the provisions of the United Nations Convention for the Law of the Sea is paramount. Further effectively policing our territorial waters and vast exclusive economic zone of approximately 1 million square kilometers is vital to preventing illicit maritime activity, including piracy, smuggling of migrants, human trafficking and narcotics trafficking, and to safeguarding our essential fish stocks from encroachment by foreign vessels in the form of illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing. We continue to implement measures internally to increase our maritime domain awareness whilst partnering with neighbouring militaries for joint patrols and exercises, India being foremost among them. We are also strengthening our response and preparedness against terrorism and violent extremism, which has become a regular threat in the 21st century, as evidenced by the Christchurch attacks in New Zealand, Easter Sunday bombings in Sri Lanka, and the 6th of May terror attack in the Maldivian capital, Male. I wish to assure India and our strategic partners that the government of President His Excellency Ibrahim Mohammed Solih remains engaged in regional arrangements that help bolster security and prosperity in our vicinity, such as the Colombo Security Conclave. President Solih's India First policy neatly complements the Neighbourhood First policy, which was articulated by Indian Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi in his address to the People's Majlis in Male during the first visit of his second term in June 2019. Today, the relationship between the Maldives and India is stronger than ever. It's not anchored by our shared values, history, and perspectives alone. India is and has been our first and best responder at all times of need. Whether it's the 1988 coup attempt, the 2004 tsunami, the 2014 water crisis, and more recently COVID-19, India's helping hand was most immediate and visible. On behalf of President Solih, the government, and the people of Maldives, I express my deepest appreciation to the government and people of India for the long-standing tradition of assistance and support extended in all areas of our nation's development. We wish the government of India all the best in its efforts to build an Atma-Nirbhar India, a beacon of self-reliance and a hinge of stability in our neighborhood and beyond. I wish you all a very productive and successful conclave.
Thank you so much. That was the Honorable Defence Minister of Maldives. And now for the inaugural address, it is my honor to introduce to all of you Lieutenant General Vinod G. Khandare, who has just retired as is the former military advisor to the National Security Council Secretariat. He served as the Director General of the Defence Intelligence Agency from November 2015 till his retirement from active service in January 2018. And during the 40 years of his career, he has been commended and honored for his brilliant and brave counter-terrorism insurgency operations along the LOC, and also for his distinguished service as DG-DIA. Sir, I request you to please deliver the inaugural address.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Let me start by acknowledging the presence of General Ivan, our guest from Israel, so obviously I should welcome him first. Baba Kalyani, a person who's known widely for the kind of work that he does in defense production sector. Nitin Gokhale, my dear friend, and lots of luminaries and esteemed people in the audience. It would be a very difficult task to recognize the presence of all, but I see Vice Admiral Ashok and Lieutenant General Tarun Chawla on one side, Satyanarayan Nawalji in front. So those of whom I have missed out, please pardon me. But most interesting and most regular attendance in this conclave has been from the foreign defense attaches who are there, so please give them a big hand. You have heard very interesting and inspiring messages from His Excellency the Defense Secretary of Sri Lanka and Her Excellency the Defense Minister of Maldives. It's very rare to find such a gathering where the regional cooperation is spoken of, and that too in the same breath, in the same emotional connect that we all believe in, and we all look at this particular conclave, which has moved from the Foreign Defense Attaches conclave on to the level where the defense ministers the defense secretaries, large number of other officials who are involved in congruence of defense diplomacy and foreign policy are all taking part in this conclave. A lot of talks in the last about 45 minutes, so I think you all must be feeling a little bored. So let me pull the leg of my friend Nitin Gokhale a little so that his hamstring becomes all right. In what started as a journey in 2016, it was the vision of late Defense Minister of India, Mr. Manohar Parrikar, who on one of the evenings, I think Nitin and I were with him, and he made a mention that, you know, there is much more that we can do. And that is when two things were decided. One was the Defense Attaches Conclave, which meant the Indian Defense Attaches Conclave, which is an internal affair which is held under the aegis of the Ministry of Defense every year. And the second one was the Foreign Defense Attaches Conclave, which Nitin very graciously accepted to initiate. And what he forgot, and this is where the leg pulling comes, is my association with him. He forgot me. But I am the one who has been associated for the last each meeting, and Nilanjana is a witness to that. So anyway, let me move ahead. I want to congratulate Bharat Shakti for the excellent initiative and the kind of tempo that they have maintained. And that's the entire team, which headed by Nitin, Brigadier Chatterjee, Nilanjana, and the entire team. They have been doing a fabulous job of getting people here. And this year in particular, under the challenging circumstances of COVID, the kind of arrangements that you've made, and I'm sure you wanted to do much more, but obviously there is a particular protocol to be followed, and that is laudable, and I think you've done really well. By the standard at which this conclave has been progressing, one can make out the interest of many foreign countries in the Indian defense production sector as well as in the Indian economy. The Indian economy is moving in an upward trajectory with the target laid out by our Honorable Prime Minister of a 5 trillion economy, and defense exports pegged at a target of 5 billion by 2024-25. And that shows when you see the participation in such kinds of gathering. And not only that, in the deliverance also. So it's a recognition that the focus is in the right place. The Indian defense production sector and the Indian consumers in the defense sector have a demand ranging from low technology to absolutely high technology products. And same is the case in the region. From a tactically required product to a strategic deterrence product is all available in India, and it is improving by the day. Now we have to understand that for achieving such targets, the research and development is a very costly proposition. Now to achieve that, there is a requirement for scales of manufacture, and that is best done by having regional cooperation and collaboration. And that is when it becomes economical. Each of the country in the region would want to look at emerging technologies, they would want to have niche technology, and would also hope that there is incubating technology which must be going on in laboratories and industries in India. And that is the challenge which the defense industry has to take on. Each of the country would want to have defense products which are relevant to each one of them, because each of the country here in the region has different security challenges. So they need technologies which are relevant, and definitely they want products which are reliable and affordable. So that is another challenge for the defense industry, to look at the best possible technology that is relevant and also ensure that it is affordable. And most important is, subsequently, post the acquisition and procurement of these products, there is a large dependence on the maintenance part, and that is where a lot of hand holding is required from the defense industry. And I think our Indian defense industry has been doing quite well in that. And when I am saying defense industry, I mean the public as well as the private sector, because there is definitely a requirement of both of them to be competing to ensure that the best products are rolled out. The kind of achievements that the Indian industry has been able to display is what Mr. Baba Kalyani mentioned about how well we were able to do during the COVID times. Things are getting better, so which means the requirements will be met at a faster rate in the defense sector. So that is where we all have to pitch in and ensure that the pace is much faster, the direction is correct, and the satisfaction level is higher. There is a vast scope, starting from the ground sector to the naval sector, to the air, to the aerospace, to the subterranean requirements, underwater domain awareness. There are things in the electromagnetic spectrum. There are things which are in space and cyber. Today's warfare and the future warfare is not as predictable as it was earlier. We are looking at kinetic and non-kinetic forms of warfare, and that also is serviced well by military and civil fusion. Unless we look at military and civil fusion and the applications which can be used in both military as well as the civil sector, the affordability of technology will be a big question mark. And that is exactly which a number of countries have been able to do. Applications vary, but the products and the technology by and large are the same. And that is the direction that we all will have to assume in the coming days. The Indian defense industry is blessed to have a large number of assets, whether it is in terms of talented human capital, whether it is in terms of the funding and financing that is possible, the kind of risk-taking capability which the Indian entrepreneurs have. So obviously the destination, the preferred destination is India, and that is a testimony to the interest which is being displayed by a large number of entrepreneurs in India. The strategic partnership model, which has been engineered to bring in the best possible technology with the Indian collaboration, is, I think, a masterstroke which the Ministry of Defence and this government has been able to bring in. So we get the best possible results and we get the best possible partnerships. The costs are better than the manufacture outside. We have to compete amongst ourselves and we have to compete with our identified adversaries as well. And that is which will ensure that we gain a competitive edge over our identified adversaries, and wherever there is a technology differential, that needs to be minimized at the fastest. So that is the big challenge that we all need to look at. India, as a friend to the countries in the region and all over the world, is also preferred because of its stated policy of not interfering in any country's internal affairs. We have a policy where we provide lines of credit which are very reasonable. We have unconditional support without any agenda which we see happening elsewhere in the world. India has no interest of being expansionist or revisionist. To that extent, India is one of the most trusted friends in the region. And that is one part which I have always been able to gain from the foreign defense attaches when they have been coming to meet me. And that's the lesson that we all have to ensure, that each country is fiercely independent in its own way, and that independence has to be protected. If we have to help them, that is from the point of being a friend, and that is the kind of ethos and culture that India has always displayed towards the friends and neighbors. I do not want to stand between you and the Defense Secretary, who must be already online. At the end, let me again thank Bharat Shakti for having taken the best possible title for this conclave and for having taken this conclave to yet higher level. And I think from the next few conclaves we will go even higher. Thank you so much. Jai Hind for the people here, and a very happy good afternoon to others who are listening virtually.
Thank you very much, General Khandare. We were, of course, expecting Dr. Ajay Kumar, the Defense Secretary, to join us online, but he's stuck in another meeting. So what we have decided to do is proceed with the event, and when he's able to join us, we'll quickly patch him through, because the lines have been tested, everything is clear. He is stuck in a meeting. So let's continue, and I would request Nitin Gokhale to please present mementos to the panel, the members on the guests. Sorry, I'm getting a call from his office. Could you just, hello? Sorry? Sorry? I can't hear you. Yes. Is he joining? Mementos to Shri Baba Kalyani, General Oav Arivan, and General Khandare. And with that, we come to the end of the inaugural session. May I request Brigadier Chatterjee to please propose the vote of thanks for the inaugural session. After the vote of thanks, we will take a short break. Please help yourselves to a cup of tea or coffee, and please visit the kiosks our partners have very painstakingly put up, and we will reconvene in about 15 minutes and continue with the sessions. And in case Dr. Ajay Kumar is there, he's able to join us, well and good. He's here? Great. Yeah. Okay. The vote of thanks will have to wait, sir. Let's just
Hello.
Hello.
Sir here.
Hello.
We are there, sir. We are live.
There he is. You can see him.
We are live. Aditya? Aditya, sir has joined. We are getting the key. Okay. Sir. With maximum from here, sir. No, what I'm saying is, should I not? Shall I start? Yeah, we can see you. We can see. Can you hear me?
So we can hear you.
I can't hear anything.
Yeah, you can hear, right?
Yes, sir.
Let's speak now, so that
So they can hear. We can start.
Good afternoon, everyone. And first of all, I would like to apologize for this delay. As possibly you may know, I was with the parliamentary committee, which actually extended till now, and I have just been able to come out of that. I would first of all like to compliment Bharat Shakti for organizing this wonderful event at a scale which is grander, bigger, and more meaningful and purposeful than ever before. Today, when we are here meeting together and discussing in a context where the the world is seeing different kind of pulls and pressures which are resulting into new dynamics which we were not witnessing earlier. In this context, countries like India, with its democratic value system, with its beliefs on rule-based order, with its belief on an inclusive, open society, is further enhancing a calming influence not only in its neighborhood but in the larger Indian Ocean region. It is in this context that India has been engaging continuously with like-minded countries and providing support to these countries. During Aero India 2021, held in February earlier this year, we had organized a defense conclave of the countries in the Indian Ocean region, and that was a resounding success. Earlier in 2020, India had organized a ministerial defense India-Africa Defence Conclave, where we had participation of over two scores of countries, and a Lucknow declaration came out for furthering, which called for furthering cooperation between African countries and India. Encouraged by the response of the Lucknow declaration during DEF Expo 2020, now it has been decided to hold regular India-Africa defense conclaves at ministerial level in all successive DEF Expos which take place as a biennial event. So we will again see India-Africa Defense Conclave happening, and I'm also happy to mention that Manohar Parrikar Indian Defense System Analysis Institute is going to be the knowledge partner for the Defense Conclave, India-Africa Defense Conclave in 2022. Friends, another area of cooperation that India has been working closely has been enhancing its abilities to provide training support to our friendly countries. For the middle management and senior armed forces officers, we have been offering the National Defense College program, which is one of the prestigious programs of its kind. Some of our friends here may have had occasion to either participate in that course or would have definitely had occasions to interact with respect to that course. I am happy to say that in this very competitive and tightly selected program, in the last 2 years, we have decided to increase the number of seats by over a dozen. Typically, the program used to have about 20 seats for friendly foreign countries every year. Now the number of seats will be over 35, and this will enable us to meet the demand, the huge demand which we invariably get, from friendly countries for programs in NDC. Similarly, in several of our long-term programs at Wellington, at CDM Hyderabad, and NDA, we are working to see how we can enhance the scope of training for our friendly countries. In addition, we are today increasingly working to provide more and more specialized trainings in our signals, in areas of cyber security, in areas of other technical areas of common interest, underwater platforms, and other areas of interest. And we would like to assure you that we would try to meet your requirements of defense training as to whatever extent, maximum extent that is possible within our system. Another area where we are today working is in terms of trying to have a larger number of exercises with countries, friendly countries. Our focus here is to actually see if we can move from single service exercises to tri-service exercises, joint exercises, which is in line with the larger effort of jointness that we are creating within India, and which will also enable greater abilities of coordination and working together and interoperability with other friendly countries. I would also use this opportunity to mention that we have recently started an initiative where our training institutes, all the major training institutes in defense training institutes have started a newsletter for the alumni of the respective training institutes. This will help the alumni to remain connected with these training institutes, know about the latest developments, facilities, and other ways in which their alma mater institute is progressing. Furthermore, these institutions are also in process of now using their former alumni as guest expert faculty, and will also be using them to increase their visits into their training institutes to speak to the new generation officers. This kind of approach of collective training, wherein our trainings of the past contribute to the trainings of the next generation, will further enhance our ability to work together. I would also like to mention particularly the efforts that we are taking to promote defense exports to friendly foreign countries. Today, we are open to provide line of credit at very attractive terms for those countries who are looking to source defense equipment from India. Indian defense industry, which was largely dominated by public sector in the past, is increasingly seeing a change in terms of a mix between the public sector and the private sector. And our private sector has been very proactively reaching out to these countries. We assure you that the kind of equipment and support that our defense industry will be providing will have either these equipment will be those which have been tried and tested by the Indian Armed Forces, or would have been tested and certified to be fit for Indian military use. Thereby, the quality of such equipment would also be ensured. We are also, you take this opportunity to invite defense industry to come for our forthcoming DEF Expo 2022, which will be held in Gandhinagar in March 2022, which is now increasingly becoming a forum where large number of industries, armed forces from large number of countries, and Indian armed forces and policy decision makers participate. So I look forward to meeting some of you physically. I'm sorry I am not able to join you today physically because of this parliamentary committee meeting today in Bangalore. But at that time, I look forward to interacting with some of you there. Once again, I think India is witnessing a huge dynamism in the defense sector, whether it is defense industry sector, whether it is the restructuring and modernization process that is taking place in our defense system. And we invite our defense industry, our friendly foreign countries to participate in this journey of transition which India is facing. Once again, my apologies for being able to join late in this meeting, and thank you for your patience. Jai Hind.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My privilege to deliver the vote of thanks. This is only for the first session, opening session. We thank, from Bharat Shakti, we thank the Ministry of Defence, the Department of Military Affairs, all three service headquarters for the kind of assistance that we have received from them in order to put up a show like this. I would next like to thank Ms. Maria Didi, Honorable Defence Minister, Republic of Maldives, and General Kamal Gunaratne, retired Defence Secretary, Sri Lanka, for having addressed us through their video. Dr. Ajay Kumar, who in spite of his commitment did address us, the Defence Secretary. Baba Kalyani, doyen of Indian industry and CMD of Bharat Forge, for having addressed us. And Major Yon Har Even, President and CEO of Rafael Advanced Defence Systems. And finally, thank Lieutenant General V.G. Khandari, former military advisor, NSCS. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Let us continue. Nitin, could I please request you to escort the Chief of Air Staff, Indian Air Force, Air Chief Marshal Vivek Ram Chaudhary, to please escort him on stage. It is my honor, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce him to all of you while you come back and settle down. Air Chief Marshal V.R. Chaudhary took office on the 30th of September 2021. He is an alumni of the National Defence Academy. The air officer has flown various aircraft and is experienced on MiG-21, MiG-23MF and MiG-29 and has flown over 3,800 hours. He was the member of the first aerobatic team on Kirans. The Air Chief Marshal has been instrumental in enhancing operational capability as the Deputy Chief of the Air Staff and as Senior Air Staff Officer, Eastern Air Command, Air Officer Commanding-in-Chief, Western Air Command, and the Vice Chief of the Air Staff. I see many of you have come back. Thank you very much. Can I please have a round of applause for India's Chief of Air Staff, Air Chief Marshal V.R. Chaudhary. Thank you. I now hand over the mic to Nitin.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I know time is short because the Air Chief has to fly to Bangalore where he is hosting one big conclave in commemoration of the 75th anniversary of India's independence over the next 2 or 3 days. Also, there is a parliamentary committee meeting, as you heard the Defence Secretary saying, so he has to also host the Defence Minister of India there. So I'll not waste much time, and I think as you get back to your seats and start enjoying the tea and the coffee, let me start first of all by thanking Air Chief Marshal Vivek Chaudhary for being here, sparing time in what surely is a very busy schedule because he's just taken over on 30th of September. We are just about 3 weeks from the time that he took over. So let me start with one question that a lot of people want to know, not just here, but those who are watching online, is currently India is in the midst of Saksham Bharat and Atmanirbhar Bharat. Air Force, by its very nature, technology intensive, modern technology always required. How would you, as the Air Chief, contribute to this objective that the Government of India, MOD and the armed forces have set for themselves?
Nitin, as you would have seen, the theme for this year's Air Force Day was Atmanirbhar Evam Saksham. The vision of being Atmanirbhar has been clearly enunciated, and we are very clear on the future force planning to be based purely on, not purely, largely on indigenous effort. You are aware that we operate more than 40 different types of aircraft, a huge inventory of surface-to-air guided weapons, radars and so on. All of them come from more than 10 odd countries. If you look at it, each aircraft has got thousands and thousands of components, and we are more or less dependent on a large number of these components from the OEMs. This is where I find there is a large scope for the Indian industry to stand up and meet the challenges, to meet our requirements for supply of indigenous equipment. As far as our own aircraft inventory is concerned, from the mid-50s onwards, we have been operating indigenous systems, the HT-2, the Avro, HPT-32, the Marut, and so on. We have upgraded some of the foreign platforms like the MiG-21s, MiG-29, the Jaguars, and so on. So we are now focusing on procuring and upgrading most of the systems within the country. When it comes to ground systems, today I am happy to announce that almost every radar that is operating on the ground is made in India or is largely made in India. A large number of our surface-to-air guided weapon systems are also made in India, and our future procurements are also looking at made in India systems. So in this way, I think apart from the physical and the kinetic means of carrying out the exercising air power, the other domains are networking. Our network, the AFNet, is entirely indigenous. Riding on the AFNet are the integrated air command and control system, the EMMS, the EMALS. All these are again indigenous products. So these are some things which are not seen outside very
It's not
clearly.
really highlighted because Air Force is always seen to be importing things.
Visible. Yeah, what is visible is the aircraft and things like that. Right. But a whole lot of systems are completely from indigenous origin, and we will, wholeheartedly, I can say that we will support the indigenous industry to take further steps in our procurement process.
Exactly. In fact, as you can see, the mix of people here, there is Indian industry, there are MSMEs, there are foreign OEMs. All of them, I think, are working together in the past few years to make these things happen. It's like, make in India, buy global, make in India, all that is happening. But I have another fundamental question about the men and women behind the machine. They are more important than anything else. And the rapidly changing nature of warfare, AI, data analytics, machine learning, so many things that we keep hearing about. How is the Air Force going about that aspect of training or upgrading the training?
I think we understood the importance of networking almost 2 decades ago. We pioneered the way by going in for the AFNet back in 2006. And like I said, there are many applications which are riding on the AFNet, and today they form the backbone of the core competence of the Air Force. So concurrent to the acquisition of these systems was the training of our personnel.
Right.
So simultaneously, as people keep passing out of the academies and the training establishments, we ensure that all of them are quite future ready. They are capable of handling high technology, capable of understanding networks and handling data. So this is the future of the warfare, the future of the Air Force, what we look at, ability to seamlessly integrate new weapons, new data into our existing networks and train our people to operate them. In this respect, we have taken a lot of steps towards automation. I don't know if many people will be aware. The Indian Air Force, for example, our internal workflow is entirely paperless for the last 1 year now. There are a lot of other mundane applications. For example, payments to people, leave applications, annual assessments, your ARs, everything is digitized. We are paperless in most of these respects. Apart from that, a little high end, we have got our campaign planning systems, our debrief systems, our electronic warfare, the data analysis systems. They are all riding on the same AFNet, and all our personnel are now quite competent in handling digital technology, and I would say are future ready now.
In fact, in one way, a lot of people miss out, and all of us also in the business of analysis or reporting, that the Air Force was the first one to propose this model for acquisition of C-295 transport aircraft, where I think the entire nature of Make in India is going to change. Can you give some aspects of that? What does it going to entail? What will it entail for the ecosystem in India, this entire acquisition?
I think it's a huge milestone that we have achieved now by signing the contract for the C-295. You are aware 16 of them will come in the flyaway condition, and the other 40 will be made in India by the Tata Consortium. And like I said, each aircraft comes with millions of components. The scope for the Indian industry to chip in is humongous. And I see a lot of growth potential in this, not only in the production of the C-295, but the technologies that accrue from that.
Downstream industries.
Downstream, yes. So they will proliferate across the aviation industry.
And this is the first private sector kind of an acquisition.
This is the first one, and we really wish that this takes off in a big way.
Yeah, that's I think a pioneering thing that is happening. Let me move away from acquisition, manufacturing, and also your systems to what's happening geopolitically, especially in our neighborhood. You've taken over at a time when we are faced with the well-known twin challenges from the West and the North, China and Pakistan. How are you looking at it? What are you, I know you spoke about it in some detail during the Air Force Day press conference, but for this audience, maybe you can sort of elaborate a little bit that when people say that there's a, the two-front challenge, is the Air Force ready for that kind of a challenge to be taken on?
I can say with some degree of confidence that the way we go about analyzing the threat perception, carrying out global scan of the political situation, of the acquisitions and the modernization of the adversaries, and to counter that, the way we plan our own acquisition for developing of the Air Force, linked to that is the training and development of new tactics. Right. So every time we find there is an imbalance between in technology or in pure numbers being count, we need to counter it with better tactics and better training. So I can assure you that we are fully aware of the threats that we face, and our acquisition, training and tactics are being developed to counter such a threat.
So last 1 year has been quite challenging. So a lot of lessons would have been learned from there, operating in high altitude areas, moving assets in such a big, large numbers. What are the takeaways in the past 1.5 years or so?
The situation that developed in Eastern Ladakh last year was actually something that we were really not very familiar with, particularly in the kind of environment that we needed to operate. It required acclimatization of a large number of personnel at short notice. It required stretching our equipment to limits which some of it were not cleared for. So we have moved equipment to altitudes well above the altitudes that they were tried and tested for when we acquired those systems. Thereafter then came the challenge of continuously rotating the manpower to take care of their health.
Right.
So as a result of the last 1 year, we have realized where we fell short, whether it was in terms of adequate clothing, adequate shelter for people to live there. So we have overcome all those shortages now, and I think we are better prepared in case it's a long haul. We are prepared this winter. We are much better than what we were last year.
That's very good to know. In fact, that is where I think the question of enhancing the fighter squadron strength will come in. Because as I believe from earlier interactions with you and your predecessors, the transport fleet is quite adequately supplied or strengthened. But the fighter aircraft squadrons are always a matter of worry. How are you going to overcome that?
Like you said, it is a matter of concern that the depleting numbers of fighters is continuous, whereas the induction is still some way off. But you are aware right now we are signed the contract for 83 LCA Mark 1As. We are in the process of acquiring 12 additional Sukhoi 30s. 21 additional MiG-29s.
Right.
And we have placed our trust and given a commitment in acquiring the AMCA.
Which
So-
is planned for the next 10, 15
From
years.
beginning of next decade probably, we'll
Right.
start inducting the AMCA.
Yeah.
So what we have to look at now is to ensure that the drawdown of the fighter squadrons is quickly compensated by new inductions.
Correct.
So that the numbers remain where we are and we don't lose our overall capability.
Yes. In fact, there is a lot of talk about integration, jointness, theaterization, and we are aware of the debates that have been going on. What is the Air Force's overall view about joint fighting, integration, joint planning, joint training? There must be something that the Air Force has put forward on the table. If you can elaborate on that a little bit.
Nitin, there is no doubt that we have to be integrated. Jointness is the way forward. We are fully committed towards setting up a joint or an integrated setup, a structure. We have proposed some options and they are under deliberation right now.
Right.
But what is most important is that this kind of theaterization is going to be the biggest defense reform after independence.
True.
And we strongly feel that these structures should be robust enough so as to be able to reduce the decision cycles, to be able to synergize the strengths of all the three services.
Exactly.
And most importantly, they need to be future ready.
Exactly. Because the nature of war is changing constantly. So,
Yeah.
So what is it that the Air Force would want that to happen? Some kind of a roadmap you would have, and you would say that there should be some more deliberations, more aspects to be decided on.
Like I said, we have proposed some alternative models
Okay.
of which can capitalize on these three aspects that I mentioned.
Right.
Synergy of the strengths of the three services, reducing the decision-making cycles, and being future ready.
Great. Final question. I know you have to go. Your aircraft is waiting to take you to Bangalore. The Air Force is very technology intensive. Are you happy with the kind of intake or the kind of demand that you have for people joining into the Air Force? Are they adequately educated or qualified to join the Air Force, or are you facing some challenges there?
I don't think we're facing any challenges because this new generation has got immense potential to absorb technology.
Right.
When it comes to the officer intake, we have now more or less stabilized at getting all entrants as BTech graduates.
Right.
For the personnel below the officer's rank for the airman intake, we have revised the entire syllabus from the grassroots level to ensure that there's a lot of infusion of technical aspects.
Right.
Not that it was not there earlier. We have enhanced it further to be able to cater for the future requirements of the Air Force.
Sure.
So I think I'm quite satisfied with the kind of intake that we are getting and the product that comes out from our training.
Oh, that of course is well proven the world over actually. The kind of training that the Air Force imparts and the kind of skills that our pilots and technicians demonstrate the world over during the joint exercises, whatever. I did say final question, but one final question is about the joint exercises that happen with Israel, with US, with smaller neighborhood countries. How are they beneficial, or how do they help Air Force in formulating its own policies or training?
I think it's very difficult to put this in a few sentences.
Okay.
Okay. It is the amount of learning value from such kind of joint exercises is immense. And in particular, right now you're aware that one of our squadrons is taking part in exercise Blue Flag in Israel.
Right.
It's with 6 other nations.
Correct.
So learning the best practices, learning the exchange of information. How do the other air forces carry out air dominance? How do they carry out awareness of the air threats and so on?
Sure.
The list is endless.
It's intangible really in many ways.
So it is not merely about, and of course finally building up Bonami and building up, you cannot be...
interoperability also comes in perhaps in that sense, that way. But thank you very much Air Chief Marshal V.R. Chaudhary. I know you have to go to Bangalore, but thanks for sparing your time, going around these stalls. Let's give him a big hand before he goes from here.
Thank you so much, Nitin. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I request Nitin to please present a small memento as a token of our appreciation. Thank you very much. And now let's step into the first technical session of the conclave. The larger issue that the session will address is changing contours of the India defense and aerospace sector. We have a power-packed panel from Bharat Forge, DRDO, Goa Shipyard and the Solar Group. The moderator of this session is Brigadier S.K. Chatterjee, retired, the editor of BharatShakti.in. May I request Brigadier Chatterjee to please come up on stage. Brigadier Chatterjee is an artillery officer, retired as DDGPI in the Indian Army. He is a prolific writer who has authored and co-authored books and writes extensively in publications globally. May I call upon our panelists one by one? From Bharat Forge or Kalyani Group, Colonel Rajinder Singh Bhatia, President and CEO. Under Colonel Bhatia, Kalyani Group has forged partnerships and collaborated with major defense and aerospace OEMs of the world, including Elbit Advanced Systems and Rafael Advanced Systems of Israel. Sir, thank you very much for coming and joining us on the panel. From DRDO, I would like to call upon Shri G.N. Rao. Shri Rao is Director General, PC and SI at the DRDO headquarters, looking after production coordination and services interaction. Directorates of interface with services for business, industry interface, international cooperation and low intensity conflict are functioning under the DG, PC and SI. Earlier, he was Project Director for Surface to Air and Air Launched Missiles at DRDL, Hyderabad. Dr. Rao, thank you very much for joining us on the panel. I would like to now call upon Commodore B.B. Nagpal, Chairman and Managing Director, Goa Shipyard Limited. Commodore Nagpal took over as CMD of Goa Shipyard on the 1st of December 2018 and he has vast experience in design and project management of large shipbuilding projects like destroyers, frigates and corvettes. He is credited to tide over various critical issues faced during the yard's ambitious modernization program for creating world-class infrastructure. Goa Shipyard Limited has created an enduring culture of delivering quality ships before contractual schedules and today is on a strong foundation for future projects. Commodore Nagpal, thank you very much for joining us and being a part of the panel. And from the Solar Group, I would like to call upon Colonel Ramit Arora. Colonel Arora looks after defense business and exports for the Solar Group in Delhi. He was an artillery officer and an army pilot prior to taking voluntary retirement from the army. He has considerable exposure to the actualization of the government's Make in India policy as director dealing with R&D projects, technology incubation, force modernization, capital procurement cases, and now while working for Solar's indigenous ammunition production projects. Brigadier Chatterjee, I hand over the session to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Nilanjana. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We'll start up with the first technical session now. And first and foremost, I would like to welcome my co-panelists who are over here. I think we have a very erudite and extremely experienced panel, and they'll come out with something that maybe you haven't heard about so far. My first issue, and I'll just give a brief prelude just to put everybody on the same page before I get on to my first question. The thing that I want to stress upon is in the last couple of years, and especially since the current power equations are there in Delhi, we've had a lot of thrust as far as defense production, defense acquisition is concerned. There have been steps which are strategic, and there have been steps which I would say operationalized the strategy, and finally the certain facilitating measures which have been taken. When I talk about strategic steps, what comes to my mind foremost is the DPP 2016 and then of course the DAP 2020. Now, DPP 2016 I think was a leap of faith almost, that kind of a change it brought into the industry. And DPP 2020, you all have been through it. I would like to flag two issues, one each from the two DPPs. The first one is the strategic partnership issue, which was talked about, I think, by General Kandare a little earlier. And he talked about that being a great way of this country really going up in its defense production. And the second one I would talk about is leasing. That's again something new, absolutely new to our system of acquisition. In terms of operationalizing this strategies, we've had this list of items, indigenization items, positive indigenization, the first list of 101 and then the second list of 108 items. And there's also a certain portion of the capital budget which has been purely earmarked for purchase from the domestic industry, which was not there earlier. Certain facilitating measures in addition to that is the delegation of financial powers, which speeds up a lot of the system. And of course, let's say the Army Design Bureau having come in there, naval design was already quite mature. There's indigenization cells everywhere in all the 3 service headquarters. So a lot of measures have really been taken. And from there I take off to my panel, and I would like to ask you, have these measures really helped the industry? If it has helped, in which areas, and especially so when we talk about specific areas, is your area included in it? How has it helped? Let's start with Colonel Rajendra Bhatia of Bharat Forge.
Thank you, Brigadier Chatterjee. I think you have raised a very pertinent question regarding the strategic partnership and the measures which have been taken in the so-called defense acquisition procedure now and defense procurement procedure which was there before. Interestingly, just as this audience is there, just to put it across, the sea change which has taken into this, in 2002, the defense procurement procedure was a secret document kept under lock and key. From that to where we are reached today, that you have an industry interaction in trying to formulate that procurement procedure is a major change. This has brought about a lot of transparency. This has also given a lot of clarity, and of course it has also brought about the interest in the industry to come forward. Now coming back to the point which you raised about the strategic partnership and whether it is addressed the area where we are focused on and where we are working on. See, the strategic partnership was meant to be a game changer. Why I am saying was meant to be? Because actually strategic partnership programs have yet not taken off, but they are all getting geared up to be brought into the so-called the domain of industrialization. Now, what was strategic partnership? It was a commitment to the industry which is prepared to invest its money to come and make a product, and the commitment was a long time that this industry would continue to become a specialized industry in that domain. I was fortunate to head the committee on strategic partnership constituted by MOD, and I met General AP, who was also part of that committee, where the processes and procedures were defined. There were 4 areas which were selected, and those 4 areas were the predominant areas like armored fighting vehicles, submarines, and we had aerospace and aviation, which was the fighter aircraft. What I am saying is that those were the key important areas. There was also a talk that we will move on to the next lot of segments like the gas turbine engines, development of other metallurgical areas into the next phase. It has taken time, it is yet not fully taken off, but we do see that we have a P-75I, RFI already into the place. There's also work going on naval utility helicopters, which was part of strategic partnership. So I think a very large segment has been included, but we have yet to see the traction which should be coming into this. That hasn't happened, but we are very hopeful it will happen shortly.
Commodore Nagpal, what are your comments, and especially keeping in view the fact of this copying deal?
Thank you, Brigadier Chatji. You know, the initiative which have been taken last few years relating to DPP or relating to aero and defense industries, particularly relaxation of FDI, industrial licensing policy, offset guidelines, make projects, export initiative, IDEX, green channel facility, so on and so forth. They have brought in massive change in thinking, and the kind of support that you get, we see in our own industry, particularly my industry, which is mainly into offshore patrol vessels, fast attack crafts, fast interceptor boats. We have seen that earlier it used to have 60% of the indigenization content, most of the offshore patrol vessels. Today, the offshore patrol vessels have more than 72% of the indigenization content. These one of the major propulsion component that we have been able to make is gearbox, which has been now for offshore patrol vessel is being indigenously built here for the first time. Besides that, there are a large number of components which we used to earlier import, steering gear, stabilizer, etc. and etc. Now we actually, our Indian industries have come forward. They have started making these components, and one of the basic things that we find is our cost comes down drastically once these basic components have been indigenously developed. The entire weapon system for our offshore patrol vessels have been indigenously developed. So, and further, we not only this helps the supply chain management, but we have seen that with all these steps, what has happened is we see a lot of MSMEs, startups coming forward today in the industry to take part in the ecosystem for growth in shipbuilding. So I think these are one of the few, these are the few steps which are going to make us self-reliant and help in Atmanirbhar Bharat. Thank you.
Dr. Rao, if we could have your opinion, especially in terms of R&D, how was it pushed, R&D pace? How have you really been able to get some advantages out of this?
Thank you, Brigadier Chatterjee. And it is a wonderful afternoon after a coffee break and hearing to the Chief of Air Staff giving his future plans. And we have been discussing now the future of defense industry and R&D and etc. So coming to the R&D, there is a traditional question in total defense ecosystem, because we have had a environment which is unique to India, where there is a divide between R&D and production. World over, we have both together under one roof, and there is no separation between R&D agency and the production agency. It is a natural sequence of R&D followed by production under the same umbrella. But in India, we have a unique case where R&D agencies are different and production agencies are different, and predominantly R&D is being done in the public domain with government funding, and production is done by PSUs and the private sector. Now, there is a lot of debate on how to bridge the gap. Recently, we have come out with many proposals. One of them is DCPP, so where we partner with industry during the development itself. Traditionally, in India, we used to develop the product, go through the trials, establish the product, then look for orders, then go for the TOT. So there is a big sequential events with large time periods. By the time we develop and go to production, people used to forget about the product and it becomes obsolete. Now to cut down the timings, this DCPP concept, that is development come production partner, is a very forward step, and which has been supported by the policy initiative also. In DAP 2020, there is a chapter 4 where these R&D products are being inducted, wherein we have a cut down timings for the trials and induction. So if the product comes or made by the production agency, there is two-stage cut in the trials and you will be reaching to the production very fast. So to enable that, the DCPP concept, where the DRDO will partner with the industry during the development itself, go through the development cycle, sail along with the industry and participate the trials with industry made by the product from the industry, so that we'll cut down all the trials and tribulations which happen post development through R&D. And in the TOT, which is a very malign word, so everybody is afraid of how long it will take and the money involved and the cycle time involved. Now, the TOT process also, once you become a DCPP or you become a production agency PA, then TOT is free of cost, so no charges is taken. So this free TOT and smooth TOT process will be an enabler for the industry to come forward for the DCPP and become eventually the production agency and the life cycle support agency also throughout the life cycle of the product. And DCPP is free to even improve the product, export the product, and do whatever offshoots required from the product. That way, this DCPP concept has stepped in to increase the efficiency of the system, cut down the red tape, and improve the total productionability of the product from the R&D to production and the life cycle support. So I think this policy initiative by government also helping industry and R&D also has come forward to take a share of this, whatever advantages are there from the policy through DAP 2020 through DCPP, and the TOTs have become now easier for industry, and industry also becomes a partner in development by sharing the knowledge through the development and eventually becoming the ultimate owner of the product at the end of the time cycle.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Can I have your comments, Colonel Ramit? And if you can just keep it a little concise, otherwise we'll miss out on the other issues that I have. We're going a bit behind schedule.
Thank you, Brigadier Chatterjee. It's a pleasure, and like it's already been brought out that there are momentous things happening, and especially with the defense industry. I will stick my answers to bullet points like you requested. The litmus test for defense acquisitions is when the cases should actualize. In defense acquisition, long gestation periods of greater than 5 years was a norm. So these time periods are reducing. That is the first point. Second is that the emergency procurements which we saw happening last year and in which the powers were given to the vice chiefs to actualize these procurements, they have set a new paradigm for actualizing cases. Third point is that positive list is actually a big positive for the growth of the Indian defense industry, and it will also have strategic gains for the country. Most importantly, there's an openness in the government to take policy inputs from the industry. This is a sea change. I'll just give a small example. We gave some inputs for the DAP 2020, and when the DAP 2020 came out, these inputs were incorporated as clauses in the policy. Thank you, sir.
Right. Thank you, Ramit. My next issue is, I'll just explain it to you. You know, I remember once on this very stage itself, maybe last year, last year, one of the panelists said that hello? Yeah. That new technology is like cabbage. It rots within days if you do not produce another technology, or moment another technology is produced, it rots. And the whole aim of this game of defense manufacturing is to find a product which is technologically ahead of everybody, and that product can become a battle-winning factor. Now, the gap, to do this kind of a thing, I think everybody has to work simultaneously. I mean, the services, the R&D establishment as also the industry. So obviously there's a requirement of getting together of all three elements pretty early in the day so that the product can be placed in the, with the services when it's still considered as something new. Now keeping that in view, if I may start with you, Ramit again, can you tell us, is that happening? Is there so much of interaction between you, the user headquarters, as also the research agency?
Again, a very pertinent question, sir. This is an area, I'm talking about the last sentence that you said, interactions between industry and the users, that is the MOD or the services. This is an area where tremendous scope for improvement exists. Interaction needs to be increased at a functional level. I'm talking about from the industry perspective. The underlying principle being that industry can do wonders for what you need, especially in emerging technologies, if the interaction with the user agencies is collaborative. Here, I would just like to make a point that earlier there was a tender mindset, RFP mindset, that we are going to take out a RFP, and when the tender comes out, after that we'll start our interaction with the industry. This probably needs a change. That is my recommendation. Why can't we probably think of a pre-RFP meeting? Because RFPs come out, industry brings out points, and they say, oh, we never thought about this, and the RFP is withdrawn. Then it comes out again, it is withdrawn again. Then there are 10 corrigendums. I'm talking about actual cases, 10 corrigendums coming out for RFP. So maybe it is time to think about pre-RFP meetings.
Right, Mr. Dr. Rao, can I ask you, and can I ask you to be a little brief?
These interactions with users, especially for R&D organizations, are very important as we formulate our projects which have to see ultimately used by the users. So that way the interaction are good. Now, recently, the perspective plans and the future requirements of the users are being discussed, and what are the technological requirements by each user with respect to the weapon systems and the deployments and the capabilities. So that will help to forecast what is the requirement and how to invest into R&D for realizing a technology or a product for future use. This will pave a long way in establishing R&D themselves into a product line which will ultimately see fruition and a product used by the services. Otherwise, both user perspective and R&D planning, if they go parallel, then they never meet. So the point of meeting has been discussed now, and recently there are a lot of interaction with users in this direction in the capability development area. So there is a lot of improvement in the interaction and converging all the efforts towards realization and ultimate use of a product for the country.
Thank you. Karl Bhatia, your opinion?
I tend to fully support the views given by Mr. Rao. In fact, I think the concept of DCPP is a brilliant concept. It does involve the so-called the future production partner right up front. And while the DRDO's preserve for research and development would continue to remain there because of the high capital cost, but applied technology, which is the key to the product design and engineering, gets starting to develop in the partners right up front. An example of this is already known in the most futuristic gun platform developed along with the two development partners along with DRDO. Also the fact that you are picking up your partners right in the initial stage allows the industries to go ahead and invest their money because they are sure that at the time of production you will be able to get those orders. There are a number of products where we are DCPP with DRDO and we can actually see real technology or the applied technology being developed. So I think it's a great idea. I think this is going to bring in a lot of technology in the industry.
Common Nagpal, please.
With respect to shipbuilding, shipbuilding is more of an integrating industry where shipyard primarily does the design and equipment are supplied by various OEMs. Decided, of course, main equipments are decided by service headquarters. But I must say that over a period of time, Indian Coast Guard as well as Indian Navy, they have matured to a great extent in these aspects that the shipyards and the Navy jointly and also the Coast Guard jointly sit down with the complete design, and there is a lot of user input. In fact, it goes till the end stage of commissioning the ship. And since one could see we have made around 16 offshore patrol vessels, if you see the first offshore patrol vessel and see the 16th one, the kind of changes that you would see reflects the user interface in that. And on the equipment side, it is largely based on the service headquarters depending on their requirements. And of course, at late stage of trial and commissioning, definitely the yard comes into play. Thanks.
Right, my next question is individually to each one of you, and the first one, I'll come back to you, Commodore Nagpal. Any major projects on with your shipyard right now which you would like to apprise people about?
Yeah, of course, we have got 3 verticals in our shipyard. One is the new construction vessels. On the new construction side, we have 2 major 11356 frigates, which are of course under construction. Keel has been laid. We had 5 offshore patrol vessels. 4 have been delivered for the Indian Coast Guard, and all have been delivered in fact before time. We have a couple of projects for state governments, inland waterways, and in the repair refits we take continuously the commercial as well as naval as well as the Coast Guard vessels, which is a continuous ongoing process. And the third vertical that we have is general engineering services, where we take indigenization of the equipments. We take our fast interceptor boats, etc. for the armed forces. So these are the major projects that we have been dealing with right now. Thanks.
All right, my next question to you, Colonel Bhatia. 2 things that if you could touch upon. One is the opportunities that you see in the subsystem segment. And the second one is the spiral development from Mark 1 to 2, and as brief as possible.
Okay. Brigadier Chatterjee, if you permit, I'll take the second question first. You had mentioned that technology is like a cabbage. You need to keep peeling it to keep it fresh. That is exactly what is spiral development about. When we talked, Mr. Rao talked about indigenously designed, developed and manufactured products. You need to continue to have its versions, Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3, continuous improvement, and to ensure that the industry steps on, starts creating infrastructure. Maybe the Mark 1 may not meet 100%, but Mark 1 has to be the starting point. Mark 2 will probably meet and surpass, and continuous upgrade overall of that technology is what is it. It's like peeling the cabbage, you rightly said. So that is what is meant by spiral development. In fact, DAP does cover this point, and I think this is what even the Army Chief mentioned in one of his addresses, that I would be happy to accept products which are Indian, which can continuously improve as we go forward. The second part about the opportunities we see lots of opportunities. In fact, I tend to endorse what my friends from the industry mentioned on emergency purchases. A large amount of technologies which were created in very short trials, people were able to accept those products. These products, you can see the opportunities in protected vehicles, you can see opportunities in artillery systems, you can see large opportunities in various segments of land systems, naval, and as well in the today in the marine sector, we are seeing opportunities on upgrade of certain equipments like torpedoes. You are old, I would say legacy equipments are being upgraded. So tremendous opportunities are available. And I strongly endorse that that process of emergency procurement should actually continue, because they're able to source technology products in very quick time.
Right, I would request you to please try and explain to us. You see, there are lots of research establishments other than DRDO. You have the universities, you have the private sector also, this thing. Is there some kind of a coordination possible, or is it being already done? And at least you are able to harness each other's strength in the bargain and produce something faster. And again, we are running a bit behind schedule.
You have brought a very important point. Now in the R&D ecosystem, not only DRDO, we have ISRO, CISR, and academic institutions. And the synergy is very important. As you have rightly brought out, there is a lot of scope for academic institutions to pitch in and contribute to the defense R&D. In this direction, we have been interacting with various IITs and all the institutions which are doing a lot of research. And ISRO, definitely in the domain of space, we have been collaborating in the launching of satellites, operating them and maintaining them in trajectory control in ground stations and data analysis. And in case of industries, now with the DCPP, now we'll be sharing a lot of knowledge through the development with the industry. And as Colonel Bhatia has pointed out, the spiral development, eventually it will take place after the first product is developed and launched, will be the domain of the industry now. So they can put their own bit of R&D into that, improve the product and increase the whatever characteristics of the product required for the future growth. This will be the domain of the industry. So industry will be free to improve the product, export the product and go into the next level of the R&D into the product. That freedom is given in DCPP. That will enhance the total ecosystem in a big way.
Right, my last question to you, Ramit. Ramit, we were talking about DPEP, PPP the other day, and I just wanted you to explain to them about DPEP a little bit. How is it helping the industry?
DPEPP, it's in the draft stage, and I feel that it is a very overarching policy document which is coming out. The government, like I was mentioning earlier, is reaching out to the Indian industry also and taking a lot of inputs, and they have incorporated those inputs into the DPEPP. One of the things which is the aims which is mentioned in the draft defense production and export promotion policy 2021 is that we need to reach a figure of $5 billion of exports. Herein, the industry is gearing up for it, and this is, I am addressing to all our friends from friendly foreign countries, that the private Indian industry will deliver on quality at highly competitive costs, reliable products, and that is the aim of DPEPP 2021. And we have already got a lot of strengths. Here I would just wanted to mention about our solar group. Like 42% of our revenues is already coming from overseas sales and exports. We are going to leverage on our manufacturing, which is already happening in foreign countries, spread over 4 continents in 7 countries, and workforce. We've already got a workforce of about 1,000 employees plus. So these are the strengths which we are going to leverage upon to increase our exports.
Thank you, gentlemen. I think I'll throw the house open for any questions that may be there. Please feel free to ask any questions that you have.
If any of you have any questions, I request you to please write it down in that notepad provided in front of you, and just raise your hand. We'll come and collect it, and then we'll hand it over to our moderator. Does anybody have any questions in this session? No? Shall we continue then?
Okay, right. I must thank my panelists. I think we've had an excellent discussion, and I wish there were some questions also that we could take on. But notwithstanding, thank you, gentlemen, so much. Thank you for having joined us.
Thank you so
much. May I request the moderator, Brigadier Chatterjee, to present mementos to our panelists. Mementos to Commodore Nagpal, to Mr. Rajinder Singh Bhatia, Dr. G.N. Rao, and Mr. Amit Arora. Can we quickly have a group picture, the moderator and the 4 panelists? We'll hand over the packets, the mementos later, don't worry. Can we have a quick picture? Yeah. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you. Industry. Let's get into the second technical session. We have back-to-back sessions now. I request all of you, in case you want a tea or a coffee, please, there's running tea or coffee behind you. You can take a cup and bring it to your table. But we will not be able to do a break right now. So technology is racing ahead at a pace hitherto unseen. In this session, we will delve into those emerging technologies that are important for the Indian Armed Forces. The moderator is already here. It is my pleasure to introduce him. Surya Gangadharan, the editor of our sister concern, StratNewsGlobal.com. Mr. Gangadharan has 38 years in journalism. He is widely traveled and he is a history buff. Current interests and focus is on China, technology and trade. He also loves animal videos on Facebook and he is a reluctant tweeter. He is here. Surya, thank you very much for agreeing to moderate this session for us. Please have a seat. I'll call the other panelists one by one. I would like to call upon Mr. Kishore Dutt Atluri from Zen Technologies. Mr. Atluri is the founder-president of Zen Technologies since the inception of Zen in 1993. He's responsible for designing and delivering state-of-the-art training solutions and simulators to the end user. He has over 21 patents. He is in charge of all marketing activities of Zen in India and internationally. Next, I would like to call upon Mr. Shende from Shree Refrigerations Private Limited. Mr. R.G. Shende, he's the founder, chairman and managing director. He founded the company with a leap of faith in 1989. He achieved great success in his startup, and his vision, coupled with a self-made promise to design, develop and manufacture world-class cooling solutions to replace expensive foreign products for the Indian Navy, is now well on its way to fructification. Imagine a small MSME located in Maharashtra dreaming to win a 200 crore naval project to supply 185-ton AC plants with the latest magnetic bearing compressor technology to the Indian Navy's latest modern frigate. He has secured that contract. Shree Ref is the one and only fully indigenous OEM to have supplied air conditioning plants to the modern Scorpene submarine as an import substitute. He is a torchbearer of Atmanirbhar Bharat in the true sense. He is a forerunner of the Make in India initiative. Mr. Shende, thank you very much for joining the panel and being a part of it. May I now invite Mr. Vishal Saxena from Idea Forge. Vishal Saxena is head of sales and business development for Idea Forge, which is an Indian startup in deep tech and UAV space since Feb 2020. And Idea Forge is also into surveillance, security and mapping, embedded deeply into defense, homeland security and enterprises. Vishal is an alumnus of the prestigious National Defence Academy and he holds a degree in electronics and communication. Mr. Saxena, thank you very much for agreeing to be a part of the panel. And our next panelist is Dr. Sundar Raman KS, the Managing Director of Shiva Texyan Limited. He is renowned in the field of textiles in India and also in the field of education. Shiva Texyan is a publicly listed, multifaceted textile company which manufactures a range of high-tech textile products, both for common use as well as for specialized industry like defense, healthcare, signage, etc. Dr. Sundar Raman is also the chairman, or was also the chairman of the Indian Technical Textile Association and is currently the deputy chairman, South India Mills Association. He is an MBBS degree holder. And Dr. Sundar Raman, thank you very much for joining the panel and being a part of it. I hand over the session now to Surya.
Hello? Yeah. Good evening and welcome. Glad to have you all. It's generally acknowledged that India is a laggard in terms of technology. We are seen as a recipient of technology, not so much a developer or even a supplier. Technology transfer, TOT, has worked in a mixed fashion, I believe. And how do we get around this? So I turn to my panel. Looking at the industries you're in, at what you do, how do you see the challenge of technology? How do you harness it? How do you develop it? Where do you get it? Mr. Atluri?
We have been investing a lot of our resources into development of basic technologies for the products we are making, like simulators, counter-drone systems and all. We are doing ground up. Now, previously, the technology would not have been available, but with the internet and other things and all, things are pretty well available, and you've got all the wherewithal to develop the best of the technologies over here. Today, thanks to that, we have been developing technologies and competing with Western countries, like companies from US, Europe and all, and we are also exporting and competing in that market over there. Okay. So I don't think that, no, at least in the domain we are working, that would be a greater challenge. And I'm sure that with the majority of other people also, it will be the same thing and all.
Dr. Sundar Raman, what's your experience?
Well, Suryaji, I think textiles is the dark horse when it comes to talking about technology. You don't usually associate technology with textiles, but in as much as it's not really high tech compared to, let's say, missiles, there is critical technology involved in actually saving people. So I would put it in two categories. One is there are some technologies that are in the civilian domain. So if you talk about insulating in clothing, which is essential for high altitude, it might sound very simple, but that's life and death for a soldier. If you talk about comfort, I would say the best of athleisure products in the world give the best of comfort. So we learn from civilian technologies. So, and India being an exporter of these kind of products and a manufacturer of textile technology in these domains, we're able to sort of extrapolate that into the defense domain. But there are also remaining products. There are some products like chemical, biological warfare systems, where typically we have the advantage of having somebody like DRDO who supports us in technology. We have the opportunity, like Mr. Turi said, of looking at other international information is available today. So technology is no more a challenge. I would say in many of these areas we operate in, we are as good as our competitors around the world.
Mr. Shetty?
Yeah, the business that we are in, core refrigeration and air conditioning, no breakthrough technological changes are expected because it's a good old brick and mortar technology which has been there for so long. The main developmental work is to adopting that technology to Indian specific conditions which are generally very severe in terms of atmospheric and service conditions. And we do have our own laboratories where we can test the conventional products, make changes into them to accept harsher environment, more strict and more reliable performance requirements of the Indian Navy, Army, and then adopt that technology to suit the conditions. So honestly, yes, we have been able to do some small upgrades in the technology that is available, while making it more suitable for the defense application.
Mr. Saxena?
IdeaForge is in UAV, and we're the pioneers in UAVs, at least as far as this country is concerned. And this is all about technology. So we are at the cusp of technology. We have been innovating, and at every stage. So the good part about our innovation has been, it's been more or less, you can say, it's been co-creation with our customers, and that's been the good part about it, right? But we have to innovate. We have to be on the edge every time, and this technology is changing so fast that normal product life cycles, which were probably 3 years, 4 years, have shrunk to 18 months. So you may have a competitive advantage for maybe 18 months, and then somebody else will catch up. So you need to constantly be at the game and come up with leading technologies and innovation. Having said that, the most difficult part is not about innovation as well and technology as well. It's about productization of those technologies. That's probably the most important aspect of, right? How do you make sure that what you've kind of demonstrated straight out of a lab, how does that get into a system which is reliable, which will perform each and every time what the customer is expecting? That productization is what we are kind of mastering now, and that's been our mainstay.
So technology is also about scale, I should think. The bigger you are, the easier it is to invest in R&D and scale up. Is that correct?
I have a counter view on that. You should be smaller, okay? You should be quite nimble, and you should be able to adapt very fast and quick. Okay, but generally in India, if you see, we have a major challenge, is we are not product driven during our education also. So you see, you have these PhD people who are academics and all, they're more busy in writing papers and publishing papers than actually creating products. So now in a lot of international schools, including MIT and all, if you go, those people, leave alone making a product for a PhD, you have to go and deploy it and ensure there is a success. So that is the kind of thing, if at all we get it right from your engineering stream and all, so you can create an ecosystem which is product oriented to deploy and deliver something and all. That's my take on that.
So assuming the government gives incentives for investment in R&D, you think that would be kind of a game changer in terms of how industry sees the whole issue of R&D?
Well, any governmental support is always welcome, and government can support that directly or indirectly, which I mean is, if I want to introduce a new technology in defense, the only channel available is no cost, no commitment demonstration, which can be very expensive for a small or a medium scale industry, in spite of the fact that the product can be of very great benefits for the application in naval or air force or army area. In such cases, I would appreciate if the government can come up with some kind of cost sharing for the development of a technology, demonstration of a technology, because in spite of a successful demonstration of a technology, it does not guarantee into a professional success, because then again we have to go through a series of tenders and you have to become L1 and all sorts of things. So any governmental support in validating a particular technological upgrade on the product in terms of sharing the cost or giving some preferential treatment post success of the technology will always welcome and invigorate the industry to look for more and newer products to be introduced.
Any comments, Vishal?
So if I really look at it, what the government is trying to do, at least from the defense sector, is replicating the DIU model, which is the Defense Innovation Unit model of the US, came back to India, which is now the program called the IDX. Having said that, DIU got kind of incorporated in 2015, if I'm correct. They have about 200 productized products. The Indian version came out, the IDX came out in 2018. They have done some kind of a funding to about 84, and there is not one product which has come out as a prototype. So that's a very telling sign. Now what's wrong, I don't want to use this stage to tell what's wrong with that, right? But there is something which is absolutely wrong going somewhere around there, right? So we need to really look there. That's one. Second thing, if the government is, so what are we trying to do? You are looking at, technologists, or, you look at defense startups, right? Now, if you're expecting that 3 or 4 young IIT, IIT is just an acronym, maybe some other institutes, graduates coming out, finding out a defense startup, right? Now, if I really look at it, and the government is trying to become like a VC to them, right? Now, a VC, look at the VC models, right? You have a Anderson Horowitz model, which is in the US. Again, some of these examples, Axel, there are a lot of these models in India as well, where the VC itself, you just go and innovate. There is the financing, the sales, the product, everything else would be taken care by a kind of a shared resource, which will do probably for a bunch of startups. Why can't we have that in India? It's a very low cost strategy for, why can't we have that? I think some of those things need to get incorporated into our ecosystem. Government has to think like a VC.
So the enormous boom in unicorns that we see, does that hold any lessons for tech startups or R&D or?
Well, technology on a B2C is where the unicorns are going. So I don't think companies in our space would actually can be comparable to that. But what would actually get us into a market interest would be a quicker access of products. Sort of going on from the previous question, what about R&D funding? Or funding is not an issue. If you have the ability to have a good idea, scaling up shouldn't be a major issue. What would be a great help is actually if the procurement policies becomes very fast, and if your products are actually taken out into the market, deployed, mass manufacturing starts, and then you have a story that would probably interest investors, and then you would go the unicorn ways. So that would be my take. If the product to bulk happens very fast, that would completely electrify the ecosystem, make it something else.
Yeah, there is a good initiative by the state of Maharashtra, who have constituted a Maharashtra Defence and Aerospace Venture Fund, having a stall here. They do offer significant funding for startups or for defense manufacturing units, because it's exclusively for defense manufacturing SMEs to upgrade and scale up. And that is actually a lot of help, and in answer to your question, if the government funding is helpful, it definitely is. Thank you.
Just a reminder, those of you who would like to put questions to our panel, please pass on the questions, write them down and pass them on to Nilanjana. She'll make sure it's carried. Thank you. I'd just like to move on to this whole thing about military procurement, which should be fairly, given the pace at which technology is changing, are our military procurement procedures, processes, are they geared up for that kind of change, transformation?
They're pathetic. So the best thing is, recently we had this emergency procurement. That should become the standard norm. So that will be the best thing which can happen, I'll tell you, to the whole industry and everyone. Okay. So, and I think there was no problem in those acquisitions, whatever they've done, it was pretty fast and all. 18 months, what Vishal was pointing out, is the whole technology cycle changes, and you have to, as per the policy document, it's 4 years. So maybe one thing is the bigger platforms like aircrafts and tanks and other things, maybe you require those kind of things. But for smaller things like textiles or simulators or drones and those kind of things, why do you actually require the same policy to be applied for even for those. So you can have a different method for those kind of things. And all for bigger platforms, of course, you might be requiring. So you have to work out on shortening. They are doing something, but it's still at a snail's pace, whatever it is.
Any comments, Vishal?
Yeah, so I would kind of second that the emergency procurement has been really, that's been probably the best thing which could have happened to the industry. Having said that, let's just break the problem into two, right? Today the military has two routes of acquisition. One is the capital route and the other is the revenue route. Well, there are, the capital route is long gestation and there are a lot of programs which have got kind of, emergency procurement, by the way, is one of the capital procurement. It's a fast track procurement for capital, right? So that's working very well. Even some of the capital ones are working well because the fact is that there are specialists sitting there. They may get bogged down by the systems and the processes, but at least there are some semblance of, so to say, specialist. The biggest problem is the revenue side of the house, right? When you go down and possibly also, if you look at these young startups, right? So who wants a 3 crore, 5 crore, 7 crore, 10 crore kind of an order, right? I mean, the capital guys won't even look at them because it's not worth their time and effort and so on and so forth. So what do? You go to the revenue route. Now in the revenue procurement cycle, the people, the processes, the systems, the people are not aligned, right? So there is a misalignment of incentives because it's an additional job for somebody, right? And so that's one misalignment of incentives and misalignment of specialization. Somebody who's there, who's probably in a northern command somewhere sitting there, who's procuring from army command a special power fund. He's googling specifications, coming out with a wish list, which which defies all laws of physics, which will never be made by anybody. And then you put an RFP. Somebody should come and go and question him, right? You've wasted 2 years of your time, of vendors' time, infructuous trials, and at the end of the day, what have you done? Nothing. So people have to be made accountable. So there are policies existing. It's accountability which is missing, and that needs to be gotten. And that accountability exists in, I think, more or less in capital. These are large projects, and you need to understand. The US government went around and kind of cancelled the 10 billion JD contract. So you will have acquisitions, counter acquisitions, and all of that, right? That's understandable. And capital procurement is that kind of a beast. But revenue procurement, at least people could become very serious. That's about 30% of the total procurement. So some of those kind of things which could probably be kind of streamlined, that will really help the industry and the young startups who are wanting to make a dent in this field.
I probably belong to capital goods side of the story, large format. The Make in India initiative by the present government has done wonders in terms of an accelerated procurement of various capital acquisition process, has definitely increased the size of the number of orders that are being floated in the market or that are under process at various OEMs. The problem is the controlling and the quality ensuring mechanism of the government is not expanding at the same pace. So a substantial stress on the approval processes and quality control approval processes is delaying the projects to a certain extent, and a parallel initiative to enforce these segments of procurement machinery need to be upgraded to the spate of keeping the pace of Make in India initiative and acquiring newer and newer, more latest of the technologies, capital equipment. Plus another technological change that the products bring in require a substantial change in the quality control processes, because what was a valid quality process for an old technology is not valid quality control process for the new technology. So changing these processes sometimes takes a lot of time, and the process can cause hindrance in the on-time delivery of the equipment. So there definitely is a very positive movement in terms of sourcing the products within India under the Make in India initiative. But unless the support structure is in place, this initiative could run into some small initial hitches.
I'd just like to come to that in a bit, sir. But still on the subject of the military, do they talk to industry? Do they tell you what they want to see, what they'd like you to do, what they anticipate in the years ahead? Is there any feedback or any sense from the industry about what they want?
In my domain, in textiles, they do. There are frequent, well, if not frequent, at least annual interactions, particularly for areas of concern for procurement for them, like the SEME areas where there's technology improvement possibilities like CBRN and your bulletproof. There are interactions. I would not definitely say that there is a reasonable amount of interaction. But the process of taking those interactions to a logical conclusion is quite tortuous. That's where I think our systems have to be improved. On a lighter note, listening to my colleagues, I think probably they're trying to make sure only the strong survive. So you beat around the vendor for long enough, and if he exists, he's probably going to be a good vendor. But that seems to be the broad process. A lot of good work has been done. Honestly, a lot of good work has been done. There are emergency procurements. There are longer term tenders. Like in my area, there are tenders of coming for 5 years now, and things. Systems are being experimented with, but it could be a lot better. Military on
interaction is absolutely working. No, from the forces and all, they are very, very helpful. Individually and departments, they are, and extremely supportive. There's no doubt, whether across the board. But the problem comes is when the whole system gets together, it becomes a different beast. It becomes very difficult to tame. So that is the problem. Although individually they're great, absolutely.
I mean, when you say it becomes a wholly different beast,
I mean, this is the policies, the DAP, the whole very flow over there, right from the statement of case. And just imagine, probably one file for capital acquisition program would probably have to go to 3 to 4 times, for the, more or less for similar thing, to the deputy chief, and again comes back, again goes. So you can shorten it. You can computerize it. There's so many avenues to shorten it and all. So that's what I mean. The policy and the structure, that is the problem. But individuals, they all know the problem. The problem is everybody knows the problem, and as a whole, you get into a problem.
Vishal?
Yeah. So for the technology area which we are in, we are having regular interactions with the user. Especially in the army, they have a wing called the Army Design Bureau, right, which will take care of all the futuristic requirements. They come consult. So they come and talk to us. We go and talk to them. If there is new requirement, they value our opinion as well. Some of the thought processes which we are thinking of, which they are thinking of, are kind of shaped by our interactions as well. So we are very happy with the way, at least with the way they are moving. So the thought process is very clear. What they want is very clear. It's just that once it gets into the procurement cycle per se, that's where the challenge starts.
Perfect. Yes, definitely the information explosion is everywhere. So the exposure that our defense forces get in terms of the global current standards of equipment or the technologies being used is definitely creates a wish list in their minds that they would need to upgrade so and so product, so and so technology. A beautiful example is the air conditioning plants with oil-free magnetic bearing compressors, which has recently been adopted in the warships of Project 17 Alpha. So this initiative always comes from the defense forces and is most welcome. And yes, there is a definite interaction, continuous level of interaction in terms of once identified how we can deploy the technology, what demonstrations we need to do. A lot of support is available from the defense forces. Like when we wanted to make a demonstration in terms of assigning a platform where we could install and demonstrate was absolutely super fast, and the project was up and running within a short span of 6 months. So this kind of interaction coming in from the defense forces has been fabulous. Thank you.
So Mr. Shende, you referred to Make in India. So I want to bring in this thing about Atmanirbhar, Is it working on the ground? How does it work? How do you see, is it being scaled up? Is it working? I mean, how would you rate Atmanirbhar so far?
No, I think it is doing a great, they're doing a great job. Atmanirbhar Bharat, the very concept is great and it is working. There's no doubt about it. It is in the policy, the IDDM and other things, right from Mr. Manohar Parrikar, who in DPP 2016, what they have done is, and that is the way to, because I also have offices outside in US and other places and all. You just cannot sell, if at all you are not making 51% over there. Okay, so go and try and sell in US. If at all you are not a US company, it's extremely difficult. So there, of course, their ecosystem is different and all, but Atmanirbhar Bharat is the right way. It is going in the right way. So I think the only thing what we have to do is the supporting policies which are there in individual ministries and all, they have to be, you have to shorten those. You'll have to actually optimize those things.
I would broadly agree with Mr. Atluri. I think Atmanirbhar Bharat is going extremely well. Policies like this 200 crore tenders under 200 crores to be first offered to indigenous sources before going outside have really made a difference. I think at an application level, it's really going great. For fundamental raw materials that form the building blocks of most of our products, be it textiles or being chips from outside, I think it'll take us a couple of decades to get into independence there, and that's not in anybody's hands. But I think broadly the policy framework is really working very well. We are going towards it.
The Atmanirbhar Bharat, as I said, actually is doing wonders. The real boom will come in the next couple of years when most of the projects initiated under Atmanirbhar Bharat will see the product on the shop floor. By that time, my sincere request to the government is to upgrade their validation and inspection and testing infrastructure. Today, the testing infrastructure in terms of laboratories which are government accredited, enable accredited, needs a serious push from the government in terms of capital expenditure for installing laboratories where the products can be type tested, because every new technology demands a type testing cycle which can be like 6 months, 8 months, 1.5 years also. So with this kind of support from the government in terms of creating machinery which can handle Atmanirbhar Bharat initiative progressing through the life would be definitely helpful.
So we are completely a vertically integrated company with our own tech stack in terms of software, hardware, etc., etc. So we do our own designing. So from that perspective, and we've been doing that from, this is our 4th generation of product, right? So we've been doing it from 2007. So if we've been kind of beneficiaries of Atmanirbhar Bharat, I would say, it will be a lukewarm response because we were doing it any which ways. We had no option. When we had entered this field, there was no after sales market, so to say. You couldn't just buy an autopilot from somewhere outside and kind of innovate on top of x86 platform or some commercially off the shelf. So we did everything on our own. Now, having said that, the problem, not so much in the Ministry of Defence, which is to say what the audience here is, but if it has it percolated down to the entire government, no, I would not say. So there is an intent. The operation of that intent is where the problem is. Still the problem, right? Because that's where issues are coming up. That's where policies are being tweaked. And we had to fight cases where people have made emergency procurement. Departments have made emergency procurement with foreign vendors when the technology was available in India, right? So those kind of things have also happened, and I mean some of those things need to be stopped. Especially the way the emergency procurement has happened in the armed forces is exemplary. The way it has happened, absolute good intent, fair trials, fair evaluation, and thereafter a fair, very time bound, right? Some of the others haven't done it, right? And so that's where the operation of intent, which what I call, is where the issue is right now, and I think that's where which needs to be looked into.
I'm coming back to the military here. How open is the military to India-made stuff. You know, I mean, we generally understand that they've been heavily import-oriented, the military. And are they more welcoming now of Indian-made equipment? Are the quality standards different? Do imported stuff have less conditions? What's the story?
So I think they are absolutely, so there is a mind shift, right? So people are understanding the nuances of, and the benefits of what's happening. So what's also happening, you also need to see in an overall environment. When you have so many unicorns happening in India, there is so much of buzz innovation, which is great, and these users also go through. So that acceptance is there now that the Indians can do it, and Indian companies are also great. So that's one part. The other part is also the fact that they have been somehow shortchanged also by the Indian industry. And I've been a user myself. I mean, I'm from the army, so I know what. So some of them have also been shortchanged, right? The Indian industry and most of the defense PSUs, they have shortchanged them, to what was asked, to what was given, and in the time frame, and in the cost, right? So, but they have come across those suspicions, and looking at the environment, we haven't faced possibly a stumbling block because we were Indian. I think we've been welcomed because we were Indian. So let me put it that way. That's the new India.
Yeah, the quality procedures for the imported equipment are really made very, very simple. For the logistical compulsions that it's not very easy to personally go and witness a particular test happening somewhere in European country, but that makes an imported product come and get settled on a quality platform with the help of just a documental analysis. For an Indian company, the processes becomes really very complex. Like if I have to manufacture one sheet metal part, then I need to identify the material, show it to the quality control people, then get it approved, get it stamped, and keep all the records. If I import it, it's like one piece of paper and the product just flies through to my shop floor. So the OEMs have, the next level OEMs generally look to import most of their products, which is again slightly detrimental to the Atmanirbhar initiative. Honestly, I don't have a solution for this product right now. I can't imagine, but the Indian quality control processes applied to the Indian OEMs need to be, at best I can say, rationalized. Not leaving the most important of the processes or the control thereon, but simple processes like procuring sheet metal, procuring nuts and bolts, identifying them and making a whole lot of paperwork can be done away with. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to come to that big brave world of drones. Mr. Atluri, your company has moved from simulators to drone technologies. Could you tell us something about what this Brave New World is all about? What are the challenges before you?
So, the drone is Saxena Idea Forge. We are into counter drone. So yeah, we recently, the Air Force was very kind enough for. So there's a button here. It's okay? Yeah. So Air Force was kind enough. They did the due diligence and they saw the products, and of course we got an order and all. Yes, we are investing a lot in that. We have got a lot of patents from the ground up, all hardware, software, SDR based things, including radars and other things. We are developing in-house now. Okay, and we are also looking for good partners who can help us in expanding this horizon to go to better places. So yes, we are at a pretty much good position now in that one.
And is any successes you've scored in terms of?
Recently, we got an IAF order, Indian Air Force order, which we soon will be delivering them. So that is one thing. And then we also have done, that was a soft kill thing, and we also have connected our counter drone system to L70 gun. So one of the route we are taking is making a completely new technology. Instead of that, there are a lot of legacy systems. How do we adapt our systems to the legacy systems to make it autonomous or new technology which can counter or mitigate the threats which are generally perceived? So we are in constant touch with the army and all. So they tell that, of course, I got an L70 or a Zu-23 or some other weapon and all, and I need to use this one to counter the perceived threat they have. So we are helping in that. We are addressing those aspects rather than making a lot of things from the ground up.
Vishal?
So, the way to look at it is that in the 20th century, possibly the factors of production were land, labor, capital. Today, the factors of production, in the economic sense, and I'll come to a battlefield, is all these three factors and technology, right? And in a battlefield scenario, possibly unmanned technology is becoming very, very extremely critical. We're seeing after the 71, incidentally after the 71 operations, what happened in Armenia-Azerbaijan conflict is after 50 years, complete capitulation, complete surrender, and that could only happen because of the unmanned UAVs which were used. After 50 years of conflicts happening all around the world, that's the kind of effect this technology has had on battlefield. Now, what we feel is that we are kind of very, very focused. We are trying to go deep into an area and not necessarily go wider, right? Having said that, if we find the same kind of use cases coming up, the same kind of seriousness which our customers demonstrate in acquiring those technologies, we will go and invest in research, in productizing those, and coming out with solutions. Also, we also need to find out, figure out is that this technology is about data acquisition. So we are the data. You have to look at it. We are at the data acquisition layer, right? We acquire data, and that data acquisition today could be from 2 kilometers to 200 kilometers, right? Finally, how the user will use it is that, can I get this entire data integrated, right, which I'm getting from a 200 to a 2 kilometers into a kind of a nice battlefield picture, right? We are wanting to go in that direction as well. So all that autonomy which we are talking of, so we are investing very, very heavily on autonomy, right? Autonomy in terms of, autonomy in terms of operations, autonomy in terms of safety, autonomy in terms of workflow automation. So that's the other thing which we are very, very focused on. And I think in a couple of weeks back, or a week, maybe 2 weeks back, we demonstrated that, we launched a new product which is called the Blue Fire Live. So what we feel is that, why shouldn't today, if a battle commander is sitting somewhere else, and if possibly a UAV is going, right, why shouldn't it be that he can't control that? So, I mean, the technology can also control that UAV, but regulations don't allow, and you have to have a man in the loop and all of those kind of stuff, right? But can he go and control the payloads? That's where, right? So we are enabling some of that technology to come in, and that's something very exciting. I think that's where we are wanting to go. A lot of autonomy in terms of operations, in terms of outcomes, in terms of safety.
Well, drones have no main in it, so they don't need air conditioning.
So, have we been behind in drone technology? I mean, in a country like Azerbaijan and Armenia and others can use it even before we did. We seem to have suddenly woken up after that.
I won't say that we are behind, right? So this is a fairly new technology, right? And you have to look at the classes of drones, right? So there are roughly about 5 classes of drones as far as the military is concerned, right? And all those will have different use cases, etc., right? We play in, let's say, 2 classes of drones, and we may go to the 3rd class depending upon where we look at it. In those 2 classes, we are finding, we have competed with the world's best. We have won against the world's best, and it's not just Indian companies or somebody giving us a trial order or something. No, we've competed head on head with the Americans vendors, with the Israeli vendors, with Europeans, and so on and so forth, right? And we have won on our merit. If that be so, we are at the cutting edge. But there are areas like the large ones, right? The males and the hales, right? Which, so to say, we weren't seeing the use case, but now that we have seen the use case, I'm sure there will be either some of the defense PSUs or some private enterprises which will get into that domain as well. So it's nothing that we are behind. There are certain areas which we are very, very advanced, and there are certain areas we'll not be. As the markets open, as the new geopolitics reality comes up, right? So we also need to understand that I use this word. We are masters of constraint-based innovation. Now the constraints have been put by the world, right? And we will innovate, and we will probably be the masters of that as well.
So you would say it's a question of time before an Indian drone is able to take out a guy like Dawood sitting wherever he is?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, great. I want to come to textiles. Are the days of importing cold weather clothing from places like Austria and Switzerland, are those days over or getting over?
I would say yes, the time has come when that's a thing of the past, because it's not only about availability of technology, it's probably availability of superior technology today in the country. Indian companies export to North Face, to Patagonia, Colombia, it's all made over here. The installations are made over here, and many times it's probably better than what's available. So yes, the golden grail of ECWCS, the 3-layer ECWCS that we see today is trying to do a sub 4 kilo product at large size. We are probably at 4.5 kilos right now, and a flow value of 5 point something odd. Indian companies have already gone 20% higher flow value at that weight. Probably the next thing would be to take it down by about 10 to 15%, in which case you have the best product in the world, unquestionably. So I look at the next decade of being of exports and not just self-sufficiency.
And these have been tried by our people in Siachen and other places?
Yes, some of them have passed trials, some of them are going on, and like some of my colleagues said, it's an ongoing process. So you hit a benchmark of saying like this is equal, and now people are trying to better it and succeeding to great extent.
What about, we were talking earlier about thermal clothing. You mentioned you were working on that.
Well, one of the next frontiers which products that are not yet available, but what everybody wants, which I'm sure many of the audience would appreciate, is that drones, my friends have created drones. We have thermal imaging cameras, put them together, and this stealth is out of the business. So any conventional camouflage doesn't work. So you try to sneak out somewhere in the middle of the night, and you get spotted about 2 kilometers away. You're a nice, big, white, hot thermal blob in the middle of nowhere. So thermal clothing is essential now. It's no more a desired thing. Any strategic ops, you need to put a thermal clothing on. It's fairly advanced technology in terms of the coatings that are used. I would say it's still under development, not into deployment stage, but in the next 18 months, we will have a world-class thermal imaging solution from us and a few others going into the Indian Army and other systems.
What about bulletproof jackets? Are you also into BP jackets?
We are part of a consortium that works on where I work on the textile portion of it. I would say the technology is fairly mature. The changes of technology are more in terms of the hard plating rather than on the textile portion of things. But I would say we are at a fairly high level of innovation right now, and unless there's something disruptive like the shear fluids and stuff that people are talking about, I think the technology is reasonably mature, and it'll be more incremental developments than something that's breakthrough.
And you are talking to the military about it? I mean, you are...
Oh yes, of course. The military are the users, so they are fully aware of what's happening in the competitive landscape globally and what they want. And we are getting there. They already have a good product, but there is scope for improvement. It's a continuous improvement product, and they're talking to vendors like We have today the Indian forces, I can say, and a textile background, right from NBC to bulletproof to all the solutions, have best in class. There's no doubt about it.
Great, great. So I think we are another 5 minutes left. Is there, any questions from the floor? Okay, this is from Chitralekha Vaidya, CEO Varsha Sool. There is Public Procurement Policy 2012, where there are many guidelines for supporting SMEs on the ground, but it is not followed on the ground. Your experiences on this policy application? Anybody? There is a Public Procurement Policy 2012. Where there are many guidelines.
2021.
So there, so 2016 there was one, and now you're talking about 2020, right? Yeah. So I'm not too sure whether I'm sure these have superseded the 2012 one. So I'm not too sure if I'll go back as far as 2012 because things have moved on right from there. But having said that, yes, there are good policies, but like I said, it's that intent is there. Operationalization of intent is there could be it could be worked upon, right? And we're seeing at least in the fast track procurement what has happened. At least we've seen that intent, which is really kind of welcome by the industry. And like I think there was a speaker who was sitting there. He says all procurement should go the fast track mode. I would completely kind of agree with him.
Anything? Okay. So we have another question from Energy Technology. One of the vital technologies is navigation. The Indian GPS NAVIC is in place and needs to be absorbed. And should be working. What is the level of absorption at this point? Anybody? No answers here.
Yeah, we have one company, I think they got a stall also. They're doing some incredible job working with IRNSS and all. But the good thing is now whatever RFPs are coming, they're insisting on IRNSS. Okay, and though we don't have the enough satellites to get those kind of an accuracies which they are saying, but at least we need to prove in the trials that they are at least compatible. So to that extent, I think it will take few more years for that to get established. And there are a lot of other companies, I think Elena is one company which is working on that one and all. So in fact, we are also open to them, but there are certain realities that when they ask that, no, I want a 10 centimeter accuracy, but our IRNSS do not give, so I got no choice to go either to uBlog or something else. And all.
Any other questions?
Yeah, so I'll probably.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'll probably take that question also.
Okay, sorry.
Right. So there are two things. Some of these marriages, let me call it, right? We use GPS technology in our drones. Some of these marriages are kind of enforced. Either the market enforces or the customer enforces. Let me be very, very, pragmatic about it. We haven't seen any of those two forces coming and mooking those matters. And like what's said that, there is an inherent, capability issue, whether you are looking at a 10 centimeter or a 1 meter kind of an accuracy. So that's the first point. And the second point is possibly where we are going with the UAV technology per se. At least we are also working on a completely GPS denied navigation, right? We would probably don't require at some point in time for certain moments, we may not require a GPS and we'll still be able to do that. So that's where the technology is going. But the Indian satellite system, it's not been, at least the market forces aren't moved in that direction, nor are we seeing maybe some RFPs coming, but we haven't seen a lot of, even from a customer side, that force coming in and making us to work with them. That's where we are.
Yeah. Any further questions?
I'm Colonel Velan from Elena Geosystems. I thank for him to introduce that. We are working in this domain for a decade now. And as far as the capabilities are concerned, Navi can give us 3 centimeter, less than that 3 mm capability also. Capability in the system is existing. But what is happening is this technology per se doesn't come under neither the capital procurement route nor revenue procurement route. And the major issue comes is that when you purchase any GPS equipment, no one asks for any question that, is that equipment working properly? Have you got certified? No one asks for this. But when it comes, when I go and give my equipment, they say, did you get it certified from so-and-so? I said, Navik itself is new. I mean, and then another thing comes when it comes to what is the last procurement rate. The entire system is new and created only for Indian Defence Forces. The system is created so that we achieve Atmanirbharta, we move away from any other system. But what happens is that at the financial stage, they ask for last procurement rate. System itself new. How can you put something new? Naya bachcha paida hua, uska kaise purana wala kaise I will give it. So that's another issue which we face practically on ground. Then about capability of system. That's why maybe the contracts are not coming out, because at the managerial level, capability of system is just not understood. What is to be understood is that this system has been asked by the defense forces to be put up after Kargil war, because of our experience of having GPS having been denied in that place. So when we conceived all these quality QRs were written there, that it should be like this, it should not be pertaining to this, you should have this, everything is written there, and our system is the solution. So which I think we have to make rules and regulations to adapt it faster. Next is, all our procurement process talks about new procurement or repeat procurement, doesn't talk about adapting existing systems. Big lacuna in terms of procurement policies. Extending it to adapt the existing systems. We can't change the entire the equipment which is there. If you just take a count of it, 16 lakh is one time someone counted, number of processors required using, we should use IRNSS or Navik. 16 lakh processor. We can't change them overnight. Or we cannot throw away all equipment which is using this. We should adapt existing equipment to Navik or migrate them to Navik. We don't have a procedural mechanism to address this part. So these are the issues which I thought I'll bring out in terms of Navik.
There are some RFPs where they have specifically asked for that. So I'm bidding in those RFPs.
Sir,
okay.
I'll
So
be
they said, but they
you.
said because of the accuracy problem, but if at all you can show that thing, then they said that we want only that.
Sir, like we have given our processor to Bell Hyderabad. They've tested and found out 0.3 meter is accuracy, dynamic accuracy, without anything additional to it. If you add anything more, it will come down to less than a centimeter. That's what I'm saying.
Thank you. We are completely at the end of our time. A big hand to our panel, and thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you very much. That was a wonderful session. Thank you, Surya, for moderating it. May I request Rear Admiral Shrawat to please come up and present mementos to our moderator and the panelists. Rear Admiral Shrawat from Naval Group is going to present mementos to the moderator and our panelists. First, the moderator. Memento to Surya Gangadharan. Can I have a round of applause, please? Mr. R.G. Shende, Shri Ref. Vishal Saxena, Vice President, Idea Forge. Dr. Sundara Raman, Shiva Texian, and Mr. Kishore Atluri, President, Zen Technologies. We'll have a quick group picture also, please, after this. So we'll have a group picture, please. A quick group picture, please, and then we'll move on to our next session. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you very much. Our panelists, Mr. William Blair. Mr. Blair is Vice President in Lockheed Martin. He joined Lockheed Martin India Private Limited as Chief Executive on the 1st of October 2019. He is responsible for leading and developing Lockheed Martin Corporation strategy for India and serves as the executive representative for all Lockheed Martin programs, products and services in the country. Mr. Blair, thank you very much for agreeing to be a part of the panel. Next, I call upon Mr. Venkat Katkuri, Head of Airbus Defence and Space for India and South Asia. In this role, Venkat is responsible for ADS business across 3 primary verticals: military aircraft, space and CIS. He is responsible for Airbus's collaboration with ISRO to jointly manufacture communication satellites in India for the export market, notably Eutelsat, W2M and Avanti Hylas. He has also played a key role in sourcing of launch services from Antrix and ISRO. Thank you, Venkat, very much for joining the panel, agreeing to be a part of the panel. Next, I call upon Mr. Salil Gupte. Mr. Gupte is President of Boeing India and the Senior In-Country Executive who integrates and advances Boeing's activities in India across its 3 business units: Boeing Commercial Airplanes, Boeing Global Services, and Boeing Defence, Space and Security. Mr. Gupte has experience in commercial and defence supply chains, overseeing manufacturing, sourcing, and fulfillment activities for Boeing products. Salil Gupte, thank you very much for joining the panel and agreeing to be a part of it. Amitabh Revi, Amitabh, I hand over the panel to you now.
To this session, being a little bit from television, we'd like to get more audience questions or interactions. So you're most welcome to write your questions, preferably if you can identify yourself, but then again, if you have some defense secrets that you don't want your neighbors to know, you can just give them to Nilanjana. I'm also looking at our online viewership, which has been quite consistent, I must say, since we started. And I'll curate if there are any comments or questions that come in from our viewers as well. Again, let me warmly welcome, what should I call them, the Holy Trinity of the defense aerospace industry. Just wanted to get an idea. Of course, 2 of you were here last year as well, and the pandemic is still, we are all recovering from it in the commercial and civilian airspace. Most of us are moving out a little bit more. I was looking at a few reports which suggested that the defense industry was more or less stable compared to commercial airlines. So just coming to you first, in terms of the platforms that you have here in India.
Yeah.
And we see a lot of them in the news of late. So if you want to
start. So I'll start. First of all, thanks. It's an honor to be here with all of you. I see so many of India's partners from many different nations here, in addition to the industry and the press. From the Boeing standpoint, yes, as for all of us, we've had to persevere through this pandemic. But I'm really proud to say that through it all, we have continued to deliver for the Indian customer here and continue to deliver more of the platforms that we have. So we delivered the 11th and final C-17 cargo transport aircraft a couple of years ago before the pandemic. Last year, during the pandemic, we brought in teams from the US to deliver more helicopters like the Chinook transport helicopter and the Apache attack helicopters. And then just this week, we delivered the 11th P-8I maritime patrol aircraft in Goa, one more to go in that batch as well. So, those platforms have been incredibly successful, and we've continued to deliver and service those through the pandemic. Admiral Ahuja from our Boeing Defense India company is here with me today, and he is in charge of our team that we have on the ground here in India, ensuring that the operational readiness of those fleets is second to none. And then it's ready to execute the mission when called upon. And then, of course, we also have our head of state aircraft, both the narrow bodies, the 737-based aircraft, and then the 777s that were also delivered this year through the pandemic. So you're sensing a theme here, is that not only has defense remained stable for us in India, but it has grown significantly during the pandemic, and we've been able to execute despite it all. And that's because of extremely close partnership with the defense services, with the MOD, with various help that we've needed to get people in during the pandemic and to executing that. And then also with the states and the local base personnel, right? Because the pandemic hit them very hard as well. But we were able to cooperate to open things up and get these aircraft and platforms delivered. So that's been a tremendous success for everyone over the past 18 months.
Mr. Blair, the platforms that Boeing was talking about, you have your platforms here as well. I mean, the Hercules, we see the Romeos for the Indian Navy as well. How is your pitch for the rebadged F-16, the F-21, as you call it, going in India, especially when we see, the F-35s taking off the HMS Queen Elizabeth?
No, it's a good question. And I think just following on Salil's comments, I just want to, thank Nitin Gokhale, Bart Shakti for putting on this event, because I think it brings together a lot of leaders, both from the government side, the international side, and of course the foreign OEMs. And just to follow on Salil's comments, I just want to acknowledge and recognize the resilience here in India with our joint ventures in never missing a delivery through the COVID pandemic since the beginning. And it was through the support of the central government, the state government in Telangana and Hyderabad, where our two joint ventures with Tata are located. So we delivered over 150 C-130J empennages now to date. It's really about 160. And we delivered our 157th S-92 helicopter cabin. So, and that's with over 90% indigenous content. So it was dependent on suppliers continuing to supply key components throughout the pandemic to, meet a global requirement, which I just think is, I think India deserves a round of applause for being able to sustain and work through that. Now, in terms of our offering the F-21 for the fighter requirement, we look forward to that requirement coming up here in the near term. In the same time frame, through the pandemic, we've actually been, as we did with the C-130J, we've been indigenizing in advance of requirement. So we've actually started the qualification of F-16 or our fighter wing production in Hyderabad in the same joint venture. And it's progressing extremely well. And that's going to meet, again, a global requirement for fighter wings, but then position us to be able to meet the Indian Air Force requirement for the MRFA. As it relates to the F-35, I think what's really important, regardless of the aircraft platform, it's generational and evolutionary in terms of how they're developed. And so we have technologies in the F-21 that draw from the F-35, but also feed into the F-35. And so you can think about a family of aircraft that can work together in a network-centric environment and deliver the capabilities, both individually and collectively. So whether it's the radar systems, the single-engine fighter technology that allows you to achieve the capability at the lowest lifecycle cost, those are key technologies that we're offering. Of course, having the most capable weapons and the ability to deliver the capability on time. And then lastly, I should have mentioned the MH-60 Romeo briefly. We signed that agreement just before the COVID lockdown. The initial payment came, I think, during the lockdown, actually. And yet we delivered the first two, and now just this last weekend, the third aircraft actually weekend before last in San Diego in record time. And so, and that was, I think, because of the foresight of both the Indian Navy, the U.S. Navy, to actually plan for and provision for that ability. The Indian Navy pilots are training in San Diego as we speak. And so, it's about capability and delivering capability in advance of requirement.
Mr. Gadkari, of late, last few weeks, a couple of months, a lot of headlines involving the Tatas. One was, of course, the Maharaja returning to the Tata stable, but the C-295, and the air chief was here, he mentioned that as well. Significant, extremely significant, because it's the first defense aircraft which is going to be manufactured by a private Indian player.
Yeah, it's a very pertinent question, Amitabh. Before I comment on that question, I would like to first extend my sincere gratitude to Bharat Shakti for organizing, Nitin and Nilanjan and all of the team. You have touched upon, before I also talk about this program, which is quite unique in many sense, I would like to express our sincere gratitude to the Indian Air Force, the Ministry of Defense, and the Government of India for making this program a reality. Of course, the previous panel also touched upon the challenges of the capital procurement, the delays, but this program, since it was quite unique, had to go through diligent processes, and we all respect in that aspect, but still the Government of India has given the blessings to move that. I would like to touch upon the key highlights, and I'm sure many of you are aware, but it is worth mentioning that this is unique in many aspects because it is the first ever Make in India program with an Indian private aerospace industry. Second, it also has the good combination of contribution or association from defense, DPSUs, both BEL and BDL. And as part of other avenues, we are still looking at exploring opportunities with HAL and other tier 2, tier 1 industry, private industry as well. And also this is unique because it is the first ever program which will give the competencies to Indian private industry and the ecosystem to evolve from current stage of build to print to build to specification and to the level of design to development. This is quite unique in that way. Over the course of the program, I'm sure the entire industrial ecosystem would also evolve itself to build up the competencies and capabilities to scale up themselves and to be part of the global supply chain. Of course, my industry colleagues here, there is one commonality. All of us are doing something with Tatas, and this happens to be the Indian production agency, Tata Advanced Systems Limited, would be our the key industrial partner. But we have, together with Tatas, we are working along with various MSMEs and also the tier 2s to see that we realize this program. All in all, we are quite excited to see the success of the program, and certainly we look forward for guidance and support from the end customer, the Indian Air Force, here.
Mr. Gupta, I'm just going online now, some questions that are coming in here. Bird strike prevention technology.
Okay.
Is that anything that's being looked at in the military or civil aviation?
Well, there's a number of partners that we work with on that. Those aren't products that we as an airplane OEM offer, but certainly many of our suppliers, tier 1 suppliers, do offer those types of technologies. And those are developed and deployed in various places around the world in defense and commercial settings.
I wanted to ask a question that's, as a journalist, as a foreign policy analyst, when the foundational agreements were signed between the US and India, whether it started off with LEMOA, went to BECA, COMCASA, what does that really mean in terms of the platforms that you are able to provide to India and or the equipment that you can put into those platforms?
Well, it's a really big deal in terms of the value that those platforms can provide, right? Because this conference that Nitin Gokhale and Bharat Shakti have put on is about really one thing. It's about cooperation, right? That's why you have all the attachés and their teams here. And that's what those agreements are about. It's about cooperation and allowing for interoperability between different assets, right? So what you can do in the operational theater when you have Boeing P-8Is or potentially off of naval carriers, Boeing Super Hornet fighter jets or Lockheed M860 Romeos, and you have the technologies that are enabled and the connectivity that's enabled by those foundational agreements, you're able to have joint efforts on communication. And that serves as a force multiplier. It increases the power of those assets working with Indian assets, right? When you have the supply chain agreement you mentioned, right? And pooling of supply chain, the C-17 is a great example of that, right? The C-17 supply chain program is a global program to allow for maintenance and parts for all C-17 cargo aircraft around the world. And India is a major part of that, right? Those types of agreements allow for that cooperation that deepens the US-India relationship, but then also with other partners as well. And I think when you do that, it brings India into a much stronger stance because India is not operating alone, right? India is forever supported by its partners.
Display, if you want to take that, and also, when you go on further in terms of the government-to-government agreements that happen, I'm not sure exactly what it's called on the American side, when you become a major defense partner, for example, or if you are, you have strategic trade authorization 1 status. What does that really mean in terms of both the platforms and the equipment that you can provide specifically to India and then maybe to other countries?
Yeah, got it. I'll take the, first off, the STA-1, this status, actually we're using today as we speak. We're able to very quickly get licenses in place very efficiently that support our joint ventures with Tata. As also, so with that, we've got, I mentioned we have over 90% indigenous content now. But you have to have licenses in place with your JV partner, with the suppliers that feed into it. We have over 300 suppliers that feed into that. And so that's allowed us to accelerate the rate of increasing the indigenous content. And so it's not a lot of people know about it. I know Department of Commerce and they've really tried to elevate it, but that's been a game changer. Because I remember when I was in a different company in a similar role 15 years ago, and even 10 years ago, that was the biggest concern and frustration was the pace of licensing. The foundational agreements now that we have in place over the last 10 years, but most recently, you mentioned COMCASA and the Industrial Security Annex. The COMCASA, when that was signed, immediately increased the capability, for instance, in the operational capability of the C-130J, because you're able to interoperate and have information that maybe wasn't readily available before. And so it makes even the platforms that are already in service even that much more capable. You asked about the government-to-government agreements, so foreign military sales. Most of what we've delivered, and I think Boeing would say the same, are either foreign military sales, FMS, or hybrid FMS. And there's an advantage with that, actually, and one is transparency clarity, the efficiency, I think, in the terms and conditions, and the ability to facilitate that. It's essentially a not to exceed cost. And then we as OEMs that deliver, we're supporting the Indian Navy directly through the US Navy. We're supporting the C-130Js as well. And so we provide then the in-country support all through COVID, but since the beginning with field service engineers. So you get the benefit, I believe, of the transparency and the clarity and consistency on a government-to-government deal. But with that, you have the surety, the reliability from the OEM that's here in country and supporting those products. And so we recently signed our follow-on support contract for the C-130J, for instance. And we have a vision towards, on that, you've got 12 C-130Js, but as you add 6, maybe 12 additional C-130Js to complement the C-295, we have a vision towards setting up, a customer operations center, a maintenance, repair, and overhaul capability in India to support the fleet, because then you get to the critical mass that's required to do that. So even though it's a government-to-government deal, you have the reliability and the commitment of the OEM to ensure the reliability of supply and the reliability of local in-country support, and then localize also the repair and overhaul capability, and then be in a position to service aircraft, not just in India, but in the region.
Mr. Katkuri, Mr. Blair was mentioning complementarity. So here we presume that in many of the platforms you are competing with each other. But if you want to talk about complementarities, and I do know you want to talk about the space in aerospace. We're calling this session Defense and Aerospace, but you want to concentrate more on what you can offer India in terms of the space industry, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think let me also share what we have done in the past, because it is important. I take pride in sharing as an Indian more than as an Airbus. We have achieved, I think probably we are the only foreign OEM, I take pride in sharing that, we have achieved sourcing of space systems from the former commercial arm, Antrix, ISRO. We have jointly developed communication satellites wherein we brought in the payload from Europe, and we have assembled it together with ISRO's platform, assembled, integrated, tested in Bangalore, launched from a foreign soil for an export market. So that shows the intent, and all what we have done is, I think we have given a significant volumes of business to India already, and we are quite keen to further progress that, and we have sourced launch services. When we are talking about launch services, completely dedicated launch vehicles to launch the prestigious French Earth observation satellites as Airbus. So we are quite keen to also look at beyond the defense, the space collaboration, and we are quite keen to engage with the Indian private space industries here.
Mr. Gupta, I mean, space is not the last frontier. And now again, I'm going to go back to my journalism and what we see in the news of late. Hypersonic missiles being talked about. I mean, what do you have to offer, or what can India gain from you on that front? The Chinese, of course, say it's a space vehicle, not a missile.
Well, I think those technologies are, those technologies tend to be fairly tightly controlled by various countries, right? But I think where you have to look is where there's engineering opportunities, right, to work together. I think that's where you're going to see it. The actual technologies themselves that are on that bleeding edge, you're going to see be overseen very carefully by every government individually at this point. I know that our friends at Lockheed have some programs in that space with the U.S. government at the moment, and I don't think the answer would be any different for you guys, right? Yeah.
it would be the same, right? And
well, you know, I think to pick up with what Salil said, I might take your question just in a little bit different direction. I mean, ultimately, you know, missile technology, missile defense technology is subject to, you know, government-to-government agreements. And I think where we are today versus where we were 10 to 15 years ago, we're on a very positive trajectory in terms of, that exceeds probably anyone's expectations 15 years ago. So that's a positive. What I point to is what we're talking about is what's the 21st century warfighter environment going to look like? And I think in our company, and our CEO is out front on this, we believe it's going to be, 21st century warfighter is going to depend on 5G, artificial intelligence, machine learning, cyber, and space domains, and how you work across a joint all domain operations, or you know, kind of a multi-centric kind of warfare, and how you tie it all together. And I think what we have here in India is the center of innovation in the commercial sector in those domains that I just referenced. And I think it was commented earlier by the Air Chief and probably someone else. You know, whether it's NVIDIA and artificial intelligence, or Qualcomm and Google, these are the companies that are actually in the commercial domain developing these advanced technologies, spending hundreds of billions of dollars that you could never invest in a pure defense play, and there's an opportunity to migrate that into the defense space. So leverage the commercial innovation and how you tie that into the defense space. And I think that's critically important, because it's going to be a multi-domain operations type of capability that's going to change the game going forward. It's not going to be any one technology.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump on that as well, because this is, I think, a phenomenon that you'll see at Boeing and Airbus, is what Bill noted on technologies that are in the commercial domain. It's technology development in the commercial domain, and it's scale of investment in the commercial domain that will continue to enable some of these advancements in defense as well, and vice versa. Because I think when you look at, so this is not just for foreign OEMs, right? This is for Indian OEMs, the panel that was just on here before. That synergy between civil and defense is so critically important across manufacturing, across investment, across research and development, technology development, because it gives you scale. And those scale advantages have proven to make the difference in terms of the rapidity of that development in every single nation that has advanced its own self-reliance in defense, right? And there are no exceptions. And so and the reason I mention this, and I'll probably talk about it some more when we talk about manufacturing and the like, is the policymakers need to recognize that their policies need to incentivize that type of joint investment, right? Or that, whether it's in technology development or engineering or manufacturing, what have you. And at the moment, we don't actually have that yet in India. The policies that advance civil aviation development and investment and defense are actually quite separate. And so that's an opportunity that we have to conjoin those more to try to enable growth and investment in those areas and really take advantage of that synergy.
I just would like to compliment on what Salil had mentioned about the scale and the synergies between civil and defense. I mean, what we recognize, of course, this is my personal opinion, but we do recognize the challenges the Indian industry, the private industry faces is about the volumes. Particularly, I refer to the example of in space, the volumes decides the survivability, and today they're largely dependent on the volumes of ISRO. Okay, so fair enough. But as Salil also mentioned about the policy, I think it's important at a policy level we give an impetus to see that these consumption bottom up is built in so that the volumes are generated and the industry survives on the viability of the business based on the capex that they would have invested. It's really important. I think one example I would give on the synergies is why not sourcing of space systems, launch services from the Indian private industry is also recognized as an offset discharge for the foreign OEMs. I think this is something that would mean really in the interest of Indian private space industry. It should not be seen as an opportunity for a foreign OEM to discharge, but it should be more seen as an opportunity for an Indian private space industry to survive, sustain, and to scale up. If you are dreaming up of creating an Indian private space industry to compete with the SpaceX, I think today it remains a dream. Unless we bring in these synergies among the departments, whether it is Department of Space, Ministry of Defense, Department of Telecommunication, looking at the synergies are really, really important.
I was going to bring up the issue of offsets, and one suggestion, since this is a platform where the government would be present in some form, any suggestions, any feedback, and how are you dealing with the whole policy of offsets?
So offsets are both a challenge and an opportunity. Yeah. So I was just meeting with our team that's been working the C-130J program for the last decade, and we're just about to complete, and fulfill our full obligation of our offsets that were associated with the C-130Js. And that's actually gone really well, in part because we started, for instance, to establish a joint venture and build C-130Js, empennages in advance of the requirement. And it wasn't just working with Tata. There's over 300 suppliers that feed into that, most of them MSMEs. And so that's, I would say, the opportunity and the positive associated with the impetus that an offset obligation created. I think the challenge is as the policy keeps changing, most recently with the DAP 2020, changing the offset multipliers to 0.5 for components actually was I would say somewhat of a negative, because that's where there's been a lot of progress in terms of engaging MSMEs at a much greater scale. Also, the opportunity to have the cross-fertilization from civil to defense helps us make the business case oftentimes that might not be there otherwise, not just because you have an offset obligation, but you have an opportunity, a business case that you want to make. And then the one other area I think there's a real opportunity going forward, and what countries do with offsets generally, and I know it has mixed reactions here when you speak with industry. They'll put multipliers in to incentivize certain behaviors, and so a multiplier isn't a way for the foreign OEMs to take advantage of spending less to fulfill the requirement. It's a way to prioritize where the investments should be made. And I think there needs to be a priority placed on aerospace and defense raw material, and the reliability of supply, the supply chain reliability, and reducing the dependence on some countries, I won't mention, but they're obvious, that tend to restrict key technologies, key materials. And I think that's a tremendous opportunity for us here in India. And so it's through policies and government investments that can actually accelerate some of the key advancements that are required to really get to a much greater self-reliance and collaboration and working together. So we're working with Midhani. We've worked with many companies in the private sector as well in trying to facilitate both investments and policies that I think could accelerate that self-reliance.
Ms. Conclave, if you want to add.
I would just note that there's a lot of policies that touch on offsets. DAP 2020, of course, governs most of them, but there's the DPM for services, there's the DPEPP for that's trying to drive what the policy should be to enable self-reliance. And it would be helpful if these policies were aligned with each other and consistent, because what that will allow for is long-term planning, right? So in defense, in the aerospace industry in particular, and all three of us happen to come from aerospace, what you find is the contracts globally for manufacturing or sourcing are very long-term, 5 years, 10-year contracts. So as you seek to build capability in India, you have to make sure, as Bill noted, the material availability is there. You need to make sure that the skilling can take place, and we have a team that works pretty much solely on that. And then you have to make sure that the contract is up so that you can have that work done in India and move to India, right? And all that takes 4, 5, 6, 7 years. So when you have those consistency of policy, then you can plan for that and you can put something in place that will allow you to meet your offset obligations on time. You know, I'm very proud to say that Boeing has always been able to do that thus far, but as you get to make these things a bit more restrictive, you know, that becomes more and more challenging. And that's going to be faced by all OEMs. And so that consistency is going to be very important to allowing us to execute.
If you have any questions, do send them in to our team in written format. Some of them online I can ask. I think this one is for you, Mr. Katkuri. This is from Neelam Matthews. What opportunities are you looking with HAL, with the HAL?
As I mentioned, for C295, the Indian production agency is TASL, Tata Advanced Systems Limited. But as part of the offset discharge, we are quite keen to also extend and look for a collaboration with HAL. And today, it's just been less than a month. We are shaping up our thoughts, and we would be keen to engage with HAL very soon on those areas. And I cannot comment beyond at this junction.
This is open to anyone who wants to ask this. This is from Rumit Arora, I think. Is it time for the aerospace and defense global giants to start thinking about making new products in India, especially in new emerging technologies?
Yeah, so I can start on that, and I can say, I think it's an evolution, right? So if you look at the history of what we have been doing in India, and I think the others can chime in on their journey. You start working with partners, Indian companies, on sheet metal parts, machine parts, simple assemblies. You move to more complex parts, wire harnesses. You move to complex assemblies. And then you move into the more advanced materials, composites. There's a curve that you're moving up. And this is all on what I would call built-to-print parts, right? So the intellectual property is owned by the OEM, and the partners, the Indian manufacturers, are working with you and building to that, to what you're giving them. And there's 275 different Indian partners that we work with today, 70 of which are MSMEs. So we've come a really long way to build up to $1 billion a year, 7,500 crores or so in sourcing. My mic's turned off, sorry. And just this year, we have added up another $1 billion in contracts along those lines. So that's all good. But the next step on that journey is build to specification. So this is where your Indian partner is owning and doing the design engineering. And we've started to work with some of our partners on that, where they've tweaked some of what we build here. And once you have that down, now you're talking about having the right ecosystem to be able to develop and build aircraft here. And if you look at what Boeing has done in Australia with the air teaming system that we developed in Australia for the Royal Australian Air Force and then will seek to export, that's exactly how we did it. We went up that curve, we built the ecosystem, and then we designed and built there. So that's really the story as to how you go about that from our perspective.
Mr. Blair, you want to add?
Yeah, I'd happy to add. I mean, maybe I'll take another dimension, which I think is really important, is India's startups. So I mentioned earlier in my comments about the 21st century warfighter that, I mean, really, India is the innovation hub for many of those commercial companies, and those are technology we would want to transition into the defense domain. So I think there's a tremendous opportunity. We have the what we call the India Innovation Program, India Innovation Growth Program, IIGP, that we started back in 2007, and we were working that across multiple sectors. And so what we found is a number of Indian startups that have really key technologies that are developing them here in India to meet and maybe adapt to specific Indian requirements. Another area what I would highlight is advanced composite technology. So we started this Tata Lockheed Martin Aerostructures Limited joint venture